them, what were you doing in 20 years? And you hear what they're telling you. I would like to hear this from the GNZs. What were they doing in 20 years' time? Thank you. So, good people, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to Sandra as he comes to take on the first session. And we're going to hear from him and ask a lot of questions as much as you can. Okay? Karibu sana, Sandra.
Thank you.
Do you need the mic?
Yeah, I think I'll use it. Why not? We've got it anyway. So let me try to get this on the screen. Good morning, everybody. I hope you are all fine. Yes, everybody happy. I'm really happy to be here, to be talking to you about ruminants. What we will do is we will have two presentations right now. I will do a presentation talking a bit about how we work in ruminants, also showing some pictures from other countries. I think we can, as Roland already said in his presentation, we can learn from other countries. We can look over the borders, and we can pick things from other countries and learn. So I'm going to do that a little bit. There will be a brief introduction. Then my colleague Christine Corrier, she will talk about cow signals. So how, in fact, do cows talk to us? How do we look at cows? How can we get information from the cow which we can use in our daily practice? Then later on, again, we will have a session, two of us together. I will dive very deep in nutrition. So I will talk about how to feed the cows, how do we look at napier, corn, silage, hay, how much to feed, what is important in feeding. And then Christine will finish off with calf rearing. So how do we treat our calves properly? How should we feed them? How do we look at colostrum? Should we feed a milk replacer or fresh milk? How can we do that best? So the first presentation is about ruminants, and I'll just take a brief moment to introduce myself. So I'm from the Netherlands. Can you raise your hand if you're from the Netherlands? Only one. You are from the Netherlands too. Goedemorgen. Ah, nice. So, very well welcome. So you have had your dairy farm in the Netherlands. Your family is still farming, or you sold it and now you live here? Nice, nice. So we have a similar background. Happy to meet you. Yeah, thanks. And happy to meet all of you. So just a bit on my background. So I'm from a farm too, in the Netherlands. My family is still farming. My education in animal nutrition. So I went to university, did a bachelor, a master, also a PhD in ruminant nutrition. So I learned in university how the rumen of a cow works, how should we feed the cow, and then since I worked first 10 years for another nutrition company internationally, and now I work with the house for another 10 years already. So I've always worked internationally. So I visited around 50 countries, and the cows are almost everywhere the same. They're not the same. I mean, there's difference in milk production capacity, but the vast majority is Holsteins, right? But they're kept different everywhere. Some countries have heat stress, some countries have perennial grasses, some countries have tropical grasses. There are large differences between different countries. So, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So my role here in Kenya is, I'm responsible for the formulation of the feeds. I'm responsible for the training of the team. I'm responsible for basically the support of the people here. Yes. And I do the same, not only for Kenya, but I support Spain, I support Brazil, neighboring countries like Ethiopia and Uganda. So I visit each of them regularly. First, let's look at the ruminants within the house. So Roland already indicated there's around 20% of all the volume we do in the house is for ruminants. Right? So I know the screen is maybe not too clear. I can maybe shift it a little bit. But we are feeding cows to produce approximately 26.5 million liters of milk every day. So our feed goes into, or we are helping farmers to produce 26.5 million liters of milk every day. In different countries. So we're big in Poland, we're big in South Africa, we're big in Iberia, Spain and Portugal, in the Netherlands, in Asia, different countries. Right? But obviously dairy cows is not the only species we feed. Also we feed the beef cattle. We're feeding, this slide says 300,000 beef cattle every day. But the reality is that this is a figure from two years ago. Yeah, it's from 2 years ago. Since then, for instance, recently we acquired a new feed company with 18 feed mills, also feeding a lot of beef cattle. So it's outdated. It's more again because the house is always growing. Now, I realize that the figures here on the screen are probably difficult to read, so I'll help you to do. So I just made a comparison with different countries. So I'll pick, let's from this list pick. Yeah, because I'm from the Netherlands and the house originally is from the Netherlands. And I'll compare it to a very different country, being for instance Ethiopia. Just to show the difference between the different countries. In Netherlands, milk production is 10,000 liters approximately per cow per year. Right? 35 liter on average approximately. Right? We have, and it's declining, but this figure is from a couple of years ago. We had 14,000 farms, right? 14,000 farms means, and we had on average 100 cows per farm, right? So I don't know how large your farm was. 200, so above average, right? So that was a relatively large farm for Netherlands. But farm size is increasing in Netherlands. It's above 100 cows. Milk production on average is more than 35, so it's high productions. Then if we look at Ethiopia, the amount of milk production per cow per year is 300 liters. Not 10,000, but 300. So the milk production in Ethiopia is extremely low. There are many backyard farmers having one cow, producing only few liters, maybe 2-3 liters, very low milk productions. So that is the average. But a typical cow in Ethiopia would produce around 10 to 15 liters of milk. Farmers would have 5 to 10 cows. So it's a completely different system compared to Netherlands, where we have milking parlors, even milking robots, cows going into the milking robot themselves, being recognized by a tag. The robot exactly knows how to connect the different teats. No human interference at all. And everything that is being produced is being recorded. So you know exactly every milking the cow goes in voluntarily, not 2 times a day or 3 times a day, whatever she wish. So it's very different in those different countries. I have a couple of pictures, and I realize it's a bit difficult today because the pictures are not extremely clear, but this is a picture from Brazil. And you see, if you have very good eyes, you see a couple of cows here, and you see here bedding. And this is what is being called a compost barn. So in Brazil, they have a typical barn system where they use wood chips, wood shavings, and then the cows are in there, and they do their manure and urine, and it just mixes with the wood shavings, and it ferments. If you dig a hole 50 centimeters, the temperature is 50 degrees, so it's hot. There's lots of bacteria there, but they do good. They keep the environment alive, and they keep a very good bedding for the dairy cows. It's something typical for Brazil. So I'm just doing some outsider views here, showing how. So here you often keep your cows confined, sometimes individually. You confine them and you feed them. This is the system in Brazil, right? If you look at what they are doing here, so the cows, they have large dairy farms, like 300, 400 dairy cows, and they bring cows to the milking parlor in groups. So a group of 50 cows will be waiting to be milked by the milkers. And because it's so hot in Brazil, In the northeast, it can reach 43 degrees. They are cooling cows before going into the milking parlor to reduce heat stress. So they're flushing them with water, with a lot of water, and then they're switching on ventilators for a couple of minutes. Then they're flushing them again, and they're using ventilators again to cool down the body temperature and to increase milk production. Right? One other typical thing in Brazil is there's a trailer, and here in the trailer there is cactus, right? Succulent plants with needles. Do you have cactus here in Kenya? You know what I mean? Cows are eating cactus with the needles. Can you imagine? I'll tell you why. So this is in the northeast of Brazil where it's so hot. So it's so hot and there is so limited amount of rainfall that the corn silage cannot grow in that short period of rainfall, and it cannot produce cobs. So it grows till here. And then there's drought. Nothing happens, it dies off. You can cut it, but you will only have the green part of the corn silage. It's not really useful for dairy cows. So the benefit of cactus, it will grow approximately the same. In terms of how much dry matter is being produced per year, is approximately the same. But then in the dry period, it doesn't die. The only benefit of the cactus is it doesn't die when it's dry, when there's no rain. Next year it will grow further and you can cut it. It's quite sugary, cows love it. Right? There are small needles, but it doesn't interfere the cows from eating. Also, it doesn't affect their rumen fermentation. It's working for them. So I'm not saying we should all start feeding cactus here. I'm just trying to tell you something from outside here, just anecdotal, to know a bit about dairy farming in other countries. So if we look at a couple of pictures from Spain. In Spain, we have very professional dairy farms with feed gates, with milking robots, the ones I just talked about. Milk productions in Spain can easily reach 40 liters on average per cow. Very high productions, very high quality of silages also. So even though the picture is not clear, they do very well on silage management. So they have silo bunkers with concrete walls. They compress their corn silage very strongly so that it's very well preserved. It's very cold. Even if you feed out, it's very cold. There's lots of grains, so there's a very high level of starch. Very different than here, honestly. So they really do well on forage management. And I'll talk a bit about forage management in my next presentation. So this is Ukraine. So I also traveled to Ukraine. Now there's a war. Not possible to travel there, but prior I traveled there. Large farms, 500 cows. Housing in Ukraine is a problem. They confine them. They don't have much ventilation, so they're all closed barns, whereas we promote always to keep open space, open air, ventilation, light. And in Ukraine it's all very dark and dirty. On that right-hand side, I'll describe the picture. It's the calving area. It's very dirty, a lot of manure. They have big problems, so they have large amount of cows, but they have difficulties treating them well. They don't keep their cows clean when calving in the calving area. In the transition period, they're not feeding them right. There's huge challenges there in these large farms, also because they have a lot of staff and they find it difficult to find good staff and train them. Now, a bit closer to home, Ethiopia. I travel to Ethiopia regularly. I've been there since 2016. I feel at home there like I do here. Right? I have a passion for East Africa and I like to come here. In Ethiopia, the average milk production is relatively low, as I said, so it can be 15 to 20 liters. Level of genetics is relatively low. So they don't all work with Holstein Friesians, but they have lots of local breeds, bringing milk production down, right? Constraining the milk production of the dairy cows. In Ethiopia, they have a lot of problems feeding cows ad libitum. So I will talk later about it, but we need to give cows ad libitum forages of high quality, and then we can start to supplement them with other feeds like our feed. But in Ethiopia, it's a problem. The availability of forage is an issue. really just having enough hay available is a problem there. Right? So every country has their own challenge. Right? What they do a lot is they feed a lot brewers grains. They have a lot of breweries and they feed wet brewery grains. We do it a lot in Netherlands too. Maybe you have been feeding brewery grains before. It's a high, it's a nice protein and energy-rich product that can save a little bit on your compound feed price. Healthy for the rumen, and the cows love it. They like it. It's palatable. They like it. In Ethiopia, they use it a lot, but the problem is storage. So if you want to use brewery grains from the brewery, it's like a wet byproduct, you need to actually ensile it, right? So you need to keep it fresh, and they can't really ensile it. So they keep it in those concrete areas, concrete basins, and then you can only keep it fresh for a couple of days because it's very warm there, and it starts fermenting. So supply chain of that brewery grains to the farm is a challenge. They love to use it, but well, if you feed it to dairy cows for 1 week and then you run out, and then if you take it out of the ration and you start again 1 week later without having had it for 1 week, production goes down. The rumen of the cow wants always the same. It wants stability. So the problem there is availability of raw materials, of hay, but also of these brewery grains. Here you are in a much better place. Okay, this was just a couple of pictures and stories from different countries, just on how we work. I think Roland already explained. There is 3 pictures here, and the top picture is us on your farm. So for the house, we always try to visit you as much as possible, right? Because if we're not on your farm, we didn't see your cows, we didn't see your forage, or we didn't take an analysis samples of your forages, then it's difficult for us to advise on nutrition, right? And also we don't constrain ourselves to nutrition. If we go on a farm and we believe, for instance, we had some discussions on the farm down here earlier on the structure of the calf rearing pens. So there was one big group with a big age variation of heifers. So they were competing. The older ones were competing the feed with the younger ones. And we simply have advised to add some extra fences to separate them in age groups. Right? So our work is not just to visit you to come and try sell our feed, but our visit is to understand your farm, your goal, your challenges, see it with our own eyes, with the experience we have from other farms, to take samples and also to know what would be the next also to develop. And that is the next corner, right, on the lower right hand side. So if Christine or if Sylvia is visiting farms, they may say, Sander, we have a problem with Napier. Because Napier is maybe not the quality that we would like. We have doubts about whether the Napier is digesting well in the rumen. Right? So that could then bring a research question to the team I am in, the global team who is doing research and development. So for instance, we had that, specifically tropical grasses. How are tropical grasses exactly being fermented in the rumen? So we did a large study at the university, incubating all different kinds of tropical grasses and to see how fast is the fermentation in the rumen. How much milk can we get from it? Right, so our presence on the farm and all the information you have and the challenge you have also guide our R&D agenda, right? But also we need to be practical and we need to apply as much as possible. And here I need to go a bit against our commercial manager Roland. Sorry for Roland, I think he's just on the phone, so I can tell you. Roland said the feed you buy here is exactly the same as the feed and he mentioned a couple of other countries, right? That is not true. Not for ruminants. Because for ruminants, forage component is the first thing we look at. So what we do is we look at which kind of forages are available here in Kenya, what nutrients are they getting from it, and then I make feeds that supplement the forage to make sure they reach all their targets. But it's different here than in Kenya, or than in Ethiopia, I apologize. So in Ethiopia, they have a lot of teff straw and hay. They don't have so much corn silage. They don't have so much napier and other types of forages. So the feed there is different. But the nutrition for the dairy cow is the same. Right? So we make sure with our feeds that we supplement whatever is lacking through the forage. So sorry for Roland, but I needed to correct this. I want you to understand our way of working. Right? So it starts on your farm. We check what is the quality of your forages. Then we can advise which type of feed would fit. I'll talk a bit more about laboratory later on. So my last slide in this short introduction is about our total approach. So feed is one. So feeding dairy cows is one. But we have a complete dairy approach on farms. So for instance, we have a special concept, as we call it, on dry cows, on transition cows. So it's crucial for you to move heifers into lactation, but it's evenly crucial to move cows from the one to the next lactation. And we all know that phase, stopping milk production, reducing milk production, the gestation, the calf growing, imposes quite a lot of stress on the cow and brings a lot of diseases. Ketosis, negative energy balance problems, hypocalcemia. So there are lots of challenges. Also, mastitis is occurring mostly in that area. So the transition from one to the next lactation is crucial. So obviously we have a dry cow pellet, but that's not all. Also, how long should you dry off cows? How should you manage the housing of your dry cows, not involving too much stress? How should your calf area look like with enough straw, enough space? There's lots of other things that are really important. Also, colostrum management. How do you know how much colostrum to give? How can we influence the quality of the colostrum? Is all part of that concept, right? So, and then there's others, for instance, about calf rearing. Christine will talk about calf rearing a lot. We even have dedicated knowledge about robot feeding. So I told you, and this is milk robots. So I told you some countries, they have these automatic milking machines. And we have special way of working and how to feed in such a robot. And even we have developed a software tool to extract automatically all the data from the milking robot into our system. And then we can see, so for instance, you have been farmer in Netherlands. If you would have used that still, I could log on to your computer, if you allow me. And then I can, if I'm your consultant, I can call you. I don't know your name. Evert-Jan. I can call Evert-Jan and say, Evert-Jan, I have an issue to discuss with you because I see your cows are decreasing in milk. I think I'll need to visit you and I want to see what is the problem. So each of the different areas of dairy farming are basically being covered, and it's not just those bags of feed that are available. That's what I wanted to say. And then I think I'm going to give the floor to Christine after this brief introduction. But I'll be back and I'll be talking about nutrition, about napier, about corn silage, about our feeds, about our laboratory tools, how the rumen is working. I'll ask you a couple of questions also to see from which knowledge level you are starting. So we'll make it a bit interactive. But first, Christine, you are going to talk about the cows, and you're going to talk about how the cows are talking to us, right? Yeah. Thanks. Okay, thank you. And I'll be back. If you have any questions, let's first move on with Christine, and then we can do Q&A, I think, afterwards. Yes, thank you. Yeah, you need to use this.
Okay, good afternoon once more. It's so unfortunate that the slides are not well showing because my presentation most will be pictures, but I will try to explain them. So I want us to learn about cow signals. And cows don't talk, but they talk to us through signals. So they show us things that we interpret as farmers, and then we're like, oh, she wants this, she's saying this, and how we can solve them. So so as the Who's, we want to help farmers to make more milk, and also as they make more milk, it has to be economical because we want money at the end of the day, right? So we are here to help farmers to make money, and at the same time, we want a farmer to be happy, but also the cow to be happy, because happy cow is the happy farmer, sindio? So, and what brings a successful business is animals, feed, and environment. So animals, those are the breed. Then the feeds we know, and the environment. Where is the cow? What surrounds the cow? Where the cow stays? Where the cow spends most of the time? So for us to get more milk, for us to be in business, make sure that we have good breeds, we have quality feeds, and also the environment for that cow is good. So the environment part is the climate. That one we cannot control. But things that we can control is something like animal welfare. How is your cow? How does she, what is a daily routine for your cow? Are all the nutrients met or the requirements met? Then now the hygiene. How is the cleanliness of your barn? How do you make sure that you are producing clean milk, which is good also to others who will be using? And also you as a farmer, you drink your own milk, so you need to factor in hygiene. Because with cleanliness also, we are putting away, we are preventing diseases like mastitis and others. Then stress prevention. When they are stressed, they don't produce. Even us, when we are stressed, we are not productive. So the same thing also happens to cow. So stress prevention mostly comes from the management. Where do they sleep? Where do they spend most of their time? And as we go forward, we'll see that a cow spends most of her time lying down. And when they lie down, that is when the rumen, which is the factory, is working. So those are the things that we need to see as we go. So now let's look at cow signals. What is cow signals? This is a management tool. So it helps us to manage these cows. Because they cannot talk to us, they cannot talk like us, so we only look at them. We call the signs, what they are showing us. Also, it's a free information because it's you to go look deeper, see what is happening. Now ask yourself, why is this happening? Then what is wrong with this? Then now you can be able to help the cow. It is very helpful because it helps you to communicate with your cow. It helps you also to help your cow to produce more and also to have a successful business. And also, cows never lie. Those signs they are giving us, those when they don't produce, that is a sign, like, I'm not producing because of maybe 1, 2, 3. So they don't lie. If you give them the best, they'll give you the best. If you give them trash, they'll not give you milk. They'll give you manure, and we are not in the business to do manure. So now, cow signals is about observing and see. So there's a difference between seeing and also you need to observe. Because we look from, like, today if I, like, to look around, I'm like, we have a lot of people. They are good, they are nice. But when I go deeper, I'm like, maybe there's one who is not happy. So now we start looking deeper. There's someone who is happy. One of us is not happy. So those are the things, like, you observe from far, then now you go deeper one by one. So you ask yourself, what do you see? Now, after asking yourself, then what are the reasons for that? Then what can I do? So that is cow signals. You ask yourself, when you go to your barn, most of the time we ignore these, but this is what we're supposed to see in our barns. We want them to lie down, because when they lie down, that is when the factory is working. So the factory, by saying factory, that is the rumen. So the factory works well when that cow is lying down, because that is a time where she is burning. She is digesting. She's doing all those things. So the more time they spend standing, that energy that could have been used to give us milk, they are used to stand. So they must lie down. And I always tell, it's us, when you go to a bedroom, you want to go and sleep. You don't want to go and stand on your bed. So the same thing. Ask yourself, in that burn of mine, when my cows in the afternoon or after eating, when it's time for ruminating, are they lying down or they are sleeping? So those are the things we'll see as we proceed. So now this one, you look from far, then now you observe. So from far you see your cows are nice, they are looking good. But deep down, there is a cow here who has a triangle, a big triangle. These are rumen field. As we go forward, we will see. This cow has not eaten. This cow doesn't look happy. Maybe sometimes there is also some injuries on the hocks. So at first you cannot see her. But now when you look deeper, you can be able to see, there's a cow who is not happy somewhere, who is not looking good. Maybe it's setting in. So you need to look deeper into your cows. Now, we have this cow. This cow is screaming for help. It's not even crying. It's for help. So this, from observation, you can tell, is she happy or not? I know it's not that clear, but you can see. Is she happy? What makes her not happy? The dirtiness. So what tells you about the dirtiness? Where she's sleeping, right? So where she's sleeping is not good. That tells you there is a problem somewhere. So as a farmer, fix your cubicles. Make sure that your cubicles are comfortable. No one wants to sleep on a dirty bed. So make the cubicles clean. Another thing, where does she eat from? All of us, we want clean plates. Why don't we give our cows clean plates? And clean plates is the traps, the feed traps. How are our feed traps? Do they have feed traps? Do we put food on the floor, or we just have feed traps where we clean every day? So everyone needs a clean plate, same as the cow. So make sure that where they are feeding, it's good, it's clean, and also they can access the feed. Also look at here. We have dairy milk. Sometimes people mix water with dairy milk. This is not good. Because sometimes when you mix in water, sometimes you find all your minerals, they go down. So either they are descending or there is a dilution happening. So it's good also to make sure that you feed your dairy meal dry. Also make sure that water is available for this animal. So you've seen these animals losing body condition. Sindio? But the good side is like, maybe she's outside. She's getting free air, nice air. Maybe she's getting sunlight and all that. But the good thing are less compared to the bad things this cow is experiencing. Now, what does a cow want? These are the 5 freedom. We call them the 5 freedom for a cow. They want space. You see how they can lie down so well. So they need space, they need air, they need light, they need feed, they can graze. And apparently maybe water is somewhere here. So they need all those freedoms. But because we don't have this land to give them all these freedoms, we are bringing them in. And when we bring them in, we need to learn signals from them. We will need to watch signals. We need to make them they are comfortable so that they can still enjoy all these freedoms. Yeah, even if it's not 100%, let's say at least we are at 95%. So these are the freedom of pasture. So as we go forward, we'll see the 6 freedoms the cow wants. So they can get it there, but we don't have enough space for that. That is why we are bringing them in. And when you bring them in, you make sure that you see those cows, they are in the bedroom, but they are doing what? What are they doing? They are standing. So also, how is the ventilation? How is the bedding? So all these freedoms that we deprive them outside, we are now making them to suffer kinda. So they are going through stress. And that is why we say too much standing. 25% of lameness, the laminitis in our farms, are caused by too much standing. Because imagine that 500 kilos standing like almost the whole day. So there's a lot of pain on the hooves. Also, 30% of the hooves, because most of these cows, they stand on the walking area. What happens in the walking area, that is a dirty area. There's a lot of manure, there's a lot of urine. So a lot of their hooves, they are affected. It's like us, when we put our fingers or our nails in water the whole day, some of them will be broken, right? So that's also what happens with the hooves. So we have 6 senses. We are going to look, so we are going to see the space and the feed, because those are mostly linked to nutrition. So let's start with space. So how does 24 hours of a cow look? 1, they spend 13 hours, even 14 hours lying down. So they lie down and ruminate for 13 hours to 14 hours. They eat for 4 hours. Milking is only 2 hours and socializing is 1 hour. That is 24 hours of a cow. So this means what? They spend most of their time resting and ruminating. And this is where we fail as farmers, because where they are supposed to be resting, those sleeping cubicles are not good for them to lie down. So we've seen there, summarize 14 hours laying down, and that is where rumination takes place. That is where now the factory is digesting feed. Also, they take 6 hours eating, 2 hours milking, and 2 hours socializing. So 20 hours out of 24 is mostly laying and eating. Now, the benefits of laying down. 30% of blood goes through the udder. And when that blood, the more number of times, the higher percentage of blood going through the udder, that is where milk is being synthesized. So if we don't allow them to lie down, to rest, to ruminate, there will be no blood in the udder, which means at the end of the day, there will be no milk. Another thing, the hooves, they rest and they become dry, because they will not be spending. Imagine that 14 hours, they are ruminating and lying down. So meaning that only 5 hours or 6 hours, they will be standing on the working area. That makes even their hooves, they are dry most of the time and they are clean. Also, there is no cow in the way. When now go back to your barn. If the cubicles is not clean or it's not comfortable for them to lie down, they will stand on the working area. So they will be fighting each other because everyone wants space. But if we have some going, maybe most of them are down, we have free space for those cows who are not born, who are the small ones who can now come and eat. And remember, in that 6 hours, not all of them eat at the same time. They eat differently. So when others go to lay down and ruminate, others are eating. So they will keep on exchanging and will not have cows in the way, in the working area, in the feeding area, and there will be no fighting in the barn. So the difference between barns. So it's between 9 hours and 14 hours. And if they lay down less, it means more of energy is used for standing. So hakutakuwa na maziwa. So the same thing, if they sleep or they rest for longer hours, ruminating, resting, that is when we'll get more milk. And we are being told that extra hour of laying down, of resting, is 1 liter of milk. That amount a cow uses, that amount of energy they will use for standing for 1 hour is the same as the amount of energy she will use to produce a liter of milk. So the more your cow rest, lie down, that is more milk you're getting. Then, so it's not that clear, but we will manage. So what happens here is that we have different beddings. So the first picture is straw. The second one is the one in the middle is dried manure, this one, and this one is sand. So you find that these cows will lie down because it's comfortable. Sometimes we have those mattresses we've been using, the thin ones. So imagine that thin thing on a concrete floor, then that cow is 500, 550, some even up to 600 lying on that thin mattress. Is it really comfortable? It's not comfortable. It's just like us. When we now lie on mattress conde, you remember those mattresses, the conde ones we used to sleep on when we were in school? So imagine lying on that conde thing and you are, let's say, 70, 80 kilos. You still feel the pain. Now imagine 5 times your weight, 6 times your weight, feeling that pain. See, it's really hard for them. So those are the things we need to. And they are saying only very expensive mattresses can reach this. I've seen mattresses where they have like a fluid in between, like they are bouncing. So those are the ones, at least inaenda na mwili ya ng'ombe. But you find we have those hard ones on a concrete. It's really bad. Then after sometimes you find a lot of wounds on the hocks, on the sides. I think those are the signals the cows have been showing that I'm not comfortable. This thing is so bad, but you're still ignoring that signal. So those are the things you need to go and check when you go back to your farms. Then cow comfort also in the bad. You see the second picture. We took this recently. All cows are lying down. This is sawdust. All of them are lying down. This one, at least, most of them are lying down because this is sand. So cow comfort is really important. Go back to your barns after this training. Go and change. See what you can do to help your cows. You can even, I always tell farmers, start with small. Like start with 2 or 3 cubicles and you'll see most of them will like to go there where there is comfort. Now, another thing also, this is a common one. You see, all these cows are standing because the place is muddy. There's a thin mattress here. No one wants to lie. So these cows, most of the time you'll find they are fighting because once they are stressed, when you are stressed, you are easily agitated, right? Like a small thing, unalipuka, unakuwa potassium permanganate, ndio? So the same thing also happens here. So just a small trigger and they are fighting, they are injuring each other because they are stressed. So make those barns comfortable. Aeration also. Sometimes you find, this picture is not clear, but all these are sleeping cubicles, but this cow here is sleeping on the walking area. So that tells you this one is not comfortable. Or maybe the space, hainitoshi, is small for me. Also, the mattress is not good. So those are the things we need to check. Then also here, this was a very interesting picture because most in our barns, we have a lot of uneven floors. So you find a lot of water, stagnant water, drainage is bad. So it also affects their hooves. And also we have risk areas, so the cows are watchful. And sometimes even when they start fighting, they can even sleep and they have problems of maybe fractures and all that. So we really need to you need to make sure that your floor is even, not so soft to be slippery, to have some grip. Then know that your working area is the most dirty area and it is the wet area ever. So make sure that the drainage is good because that is where there is urine, there is dung, there is water flowing maybe from the water trap. So make sure it's dry. Then also another thing, aeration is very important. Like today, if all of this tent was closed, how could be the situation in here? Very stuffy, very warm. So we need the same for the cows. Make sure that they are well aerated. There is air flowing in. So, and also let's have a swinging space. Because I always ask farmers, how does your cows stand? How does a normal cow stand? If they want to stand, what do? They go in front. So they need a swinging space. So in the second picture, do we really have a swinging space? This one. We don't. This is a wall already blocking. So we need a swinging space, and mostly we put a neck rail on top here. So that it can, like you see this one, it prevents this cow going up to the end. So we have a swinging space that will help this cow to swing forward and then now able to stand. If they do this and they hit the wall, they will not lie down. Because who wants every day you want to start, you have to hit your head on the wall. No one wants that. So the same also with the cow. Then we need well-aerated barns. We need fresh air. That I've talked about it. And also, we want them also to reach the plate so well. Because if they don't reach the plate, they cannot eat. We don't want shiny cows, because sometimes you find we have a lot of cows with shiny, like all the hair is rubbed here. We don't have hair because of this. So make sure that we don't want shiny cows here. We don't want shiny metals. We want cows which are well with their hair growing well, and also they are not struggling to get feed. Because this cow, I always ask farmers, when someone is just put something on your neck, will you even swallow something? So this cow is also talking to you, but you don't want to. You want to hear. So another thing also, we need also to make sure that they can access the feed troughs. These feed troughs, oops, going so fast. So here, make sure that they access the feeds to be there 24 hours, well-aerated barn, and now that was space. Now let's go to feed. They need feed 24 hours in front of a cow. So every cow needs feed that is enough. So that we say 1-1. Like if you have 30 cows, calculate a ration enough for 30 cows. Also, they need to be there 24 hours in front of the cow. We've seen that they serve each other at their own time. So when they wake up, they eat, go back to sleep. They need to come back again and find there is feed. So another thing is accessibility. How is the space? How is the flow? How is the size of your trough? Another thing also, sufficient, has to be enough to avoid fighting, and also to make sure that they are full. Also, it has to be sweet. Who doesn't like sweet things? And also it has to be in right content in terms of balance. The ration has to be balanced in order to get milk. So we need feed. In this situation, you see, this cow wants feed. There's no feed in the trough. So this one are waiting for feed. It's already finished, so they still want more. So every time they will keep on making noise, and you are there, just like, these cows, I've given them food, but they are still making noise, no milk. It's because they are like, it's not enough. So it has to be enough. Then also, there's a situation where all of them, it's enough for each one of us, each one of them. So each one of them is eating, no fighting. They're just eating, picking what is enough for you. Then you go back and ruminate. Now, this is a situation where this is a calf. You see the feed trough even is so big for her to get the feed. So he goes in with both the front legs. So we really need to make sure that the feed troughs are accessible to every group of your cows. Then this is a situation where we have a lot of feed, but none of the cows are eating. So sometimes it's the same. It has to be tasty. It has to be nice. If it's something that they don't like, they will not eat. So you'll have a lot of feed, every day a lot of wastes, because they are trying to communicate like it is not good. But you are forcing them to eat. So another thing is selection. We need to avoid selection where you find these cows, they are selecting. They are like, we are looking for something good. The rest, we just leave them. So you find at the end of the day, you give them a bag full of feed, but in the evening, you have 3/4 of leftovers, because they only selected the quarter part, which is the best, then the rest they left. Then, also we need to check on the mix. Are we mixing the right thing? He will come and he will tell you about the rations. Sometimes you find we have a lot of hay in our rations with so less, maybe silage or napier. They will select silage and napier. They will leave a lot of hay for you. That is a lot of fiber. They don't want that. So we really need to make sure that what they are really eating is something that is good. So this one has a handful of TMR. You see that this one here, This is the size of hay. I've been visiting farms and I've seen farmers chopping hay too small. They are too dusty. So when we chop them too small, we don't have that physical effect. We want something that itatusaidia to hold that feed so that digestion can take place. So sometimes we find farmers chopping hay to be so small kama unga. Simona, simunafanya. So when you do that, when you go back to your manure, because as we continue also, we also feed the cow from behind. See how is the manure. You find all your grass in your manure because it just passed the rumen. So we really need to make sure that we have that physical effective fiber that will help that feed in Yamekule, be it the small chopped silage or that dairy meal, to stay for some time in the rumen for microbes to take all the nutrients. So we need, unaona hiyo size ya mdomo yake, we need the size. So go and change those vichungi, because those vichungi giving you those small things, and then shafkata cuttings, the small napier like sukuma wiki. See, nakata ndogo ndogo sana. So you find everything is small. We don't have that physical effective fiber, and all your feed is out. So we are just busy producing manure instead of producing what? Producing milk. Then, so we know a cow eats 10 to 12 times per day, so make the feed available so that she knows when to go. Also, so she's here saying, look at me and look at me. Niangalie na uniangalie tu vizuri. So, there's something called rumen feel. So this cow is telling you, tell me, if like she's saying to you like, I am not full. So she's just like, you guy, look at me. Am I really full? But where will you see that this cow is full or not full, apart from making noise? There's something we call rumen feel. And rumen feel is the dry matter intake. So when we feed a cow, after digestion, atoe maji and all that, what remains in the cow? That is a dry matter. Dry matter and dry feed, those are two different things. So dry matter is that fed a cow, done all the digestion imefanyika, then that remains after water is being removed. That is now the dry matter. Now, there is something we call the rumen, and there is something we call the triangle. When you go back, check on this triangle, because this is now a cow talking to you like, I am not full. So with this triangle on the, where is the rumen, by the way? Left or right? Huh? Left. Someone is saying right there. No, it is on the left. So you go with your hand. You put on that triangle. You see this triangle? Hapa juu. Put your hand. If mkono yote inaingia, if this hand fits on that triangle, that tells you that cow is not full. That cow is hungry. So that is how they talk. For us, we say like, I'm not full. I still need to add some, right? But for her, she can't talk. She will talk through this triangle. So these triangles, make sure that they are not visible. And then mostly we want a triangle. We score them 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want a 3.5 maximum. Then, so this one, what will explains? This cow has not eaten enough today, because you see the triangle is so big, my hand can fit it, but you can see how it looks like. So this one is not full today. This one has not eaten enough this week. This one for a whole month. So they are so skinny, and the triangle is so big and so deep. So these are the things that will help us to understand if what we are doing, and this is a signal that I am not full. As I wind up, so I'm saying we want our 3.5. Then rumen score, that is what I've said. It has to be like, you just see a triangle from far. It is not that visible. At least we can see it somewhere, but it's full. Then we go to the body condition. This one, I call it a bicycle. This is score of 1. This cow is so thin. So the only visible thing is the head and back here. That is how your bicycle looks like. So it's just the head, the ears, we can see the ears and the back. This is not what we want to see in our farms. Mostly farms have this because we neglect the cows after calving. So they end up eating their body fats, and sometimes this is a 2. Sometimes it's so extreme it goes to 1. This is not what we want. We want our cows to be 3, 3.5. At least we can see some bones, yes, but there is fats. They have not lost their body condition. These 4 mostly for the dry cows, 4, 5 mostly for the dry cows, and those cows, 4 also, those are in late lactation, 3.5, 4 most in late lactation. Because they are not producing more milk, so they tend up sometimes to add weight. So, I said we are feeding from behind, the manure. And we also score manure. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This one, mostly in Yapunda. This one, we don't want to see these in our farms. And this is what we see in our farms. Those hard manure. This tells you there's a lot of fiber in your feed. And with this manure, when you see this manure, you don't have milk. So you are in a business of producing what? Manure. We don't want these in our farms. Score of 4 mostly for those who are in late lactation. So where we want 2 and 3. Because 2 are those that are in early lactation. Digestion yaraka. So they eat, goes, produce milk. So 1 is when we have an upset. That is a diarrhea. We don't want that. Because when we have an upset or something like a rumen acidosis, all our nutrients are gone out. So this, we don't want 1. 2-ish, not bad, but here we need to be really careful. Only for those cows that are in early lactation. But 3 is okay for, have something like a cake. You even hear how they, so those are the things, those are cows talking. So you need to capture those signals. So this is also another thing, the consistency also. Check also on the color. Check also on the grains. Sometimes you find that if their kennels are not, the grains are not well broken, you find them here. And this is very common because of the type of machines we use. Those who use shaft cutter or choppers which are not well sharpened, they tend to be here. Or those choppers without the corn crusher, they have a lot of manure with the grains. So what you do, you feeding, you're getting a lot of this, and then your chicken comes and you so you like you're feeding chickens instead of getting milk. Sindio? So this needs to change. Then also there's something we do, we call manure analysis. So you take 1 liter of manure, you wash it through, then you check on the, sometimes you find long undigested feeds, sometimes you find grains, so you need to adjust. Then we take this back into the 1 liter again. Ikikuwa tu more than a half, it means you are in the business of manure. So it's like what you are feeding yote imefanya nini? Imetoka. So we need half na kuteremka chini, but we also be keen on the feed and the undigested feeds, those grains that have passed, we need to correct that. Then water is very important, and sometimes also they talk to us sometimes when you don't have enough water troughs, so they are crowding, they are fighting. So you make sure that the watering points are enough for your cows, the water is clean, the water is thirsty, because the most sensitive animal is cow. If this water is not clean, they will not drink. So make sure that it's clean. It's the same water you're drinking. Also, it's good for them. So make water available for them. Now, so she's here asking you, are you going to help? So whatever we have learned today, you go and put it in practice. Sawa sawa. Thank you.
All right, sorry. So if you could stand a bit and stretch. Thank you. Thank you. Let's stand a bit and stretch. So we've got 5 minutes break. And I think we can take that to do a little bit of with your right hand pointing your left. Okay, you can stand hands akimbo. So with the hands akimbo, you stand on toes. So you squat a little bit, you stretch as you go down, probably 1 and up, okay? You don't have to go further down. All right, you can start, let's go. 1 and stay there. And then up. Again, stay there. Keep going down. Stay there. Further down. Stay there. And up. Okay, so you do like this. And then find a space, just stretch to your left until you feel some sort of like pain here. Pull your back. And then to your right. Again, turn to the other side. Okay, so do like this. Just stretch. Stretch. Do like me. And then the other way around. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then up. You can go inside. That's up. Make sure your hands are straight. Don't do like this. You strap there. And then that way. And then down a little bit. Make sure your knees are straight like you, not like this. Okay. Then up. So I would like you to walk around. Just within. Walk around and find a little as you
Yes? If we overfeed them, they become fat. If we underfeed them, very skinny. Right? So it's important to understand. Then, talk about what do cows actually need in terms of nutrition. They need energy and they need protein. Right? So they need energy, but they don't need general energy. They need energy that can be converted to milk. And now it's getting tricky. And I think this is the guy who sent me a text a couple of months ago about VEM and ME. So I adjusted my presentation on the spot, right there. In my language, when I formulate diets, I work with the Huis software with our own calculation. We do a lot of research. We have our own calculation, how to feed the best for cows. And I work with this strange thing here called VEM, right? And VEM means the amount of net energy after the digestion process, which can produce milk. So cows eating energy, then lots of things are going on in there, and then some things are being absorbed in the blood, and this can then be transferred to milk, right? And that is what I call VEM. Now, since it's a critical question, I added this. So I added this. So this is my VEM value, 800. This is ME. I think you all work in ME, 9.5. 800 of my VEM is 9.5 ME. 850 is 10 ME, and so on and so forth. So it starts with, so it increases 5 ME every 50 VEM. So we have a conversion available. So this table helps you to understand what I actually mean with my VEM values. And if we come to your farm and if we need to do a tailored nutritional calculation, we can use this table to convert where we're coming from in terms of ME and what we're doing with our proprietary knowledge in the house with VEM. So the same on the other side of that sheet here. On the right hand side you see protein. When we are feeding protein, so when the cow is eating protein, we are obviously giving crude protein, right? Napier has crude protein of 18, 13, 10. It's highly variable, honestly. Our feeds have protein levels, crude protein of 16% or 18%, different levels of protein, right? A high production cow needs more protein. But a dairy cow never needs, now it's getting tricky, a dairy cow never needs crude protein. A cow does not need crude protein. Right? So it's strange, right? A cow eats crude protein, then in the rumen, this is converted to something else. Because there is billions and billions of bacteria inside the rumen, and they convert the crude protein into microbial protein. In fact, the microbes are growing. And also they convert another part of that protein to bypass protein. So protein that is actually going to the lower gut and can be absorbed. Right? So I use those other values on that right hand. So we have feeds and they have 18% crude protein and they have 19% crude protein. But in fact, for me and for the dairy cows, it's not so important. I formulate the feeds on those other nutrients. How much protein is really available for milk production. Yeah? So, what I'm saying actually is that when we are feeding dairy cows, we're not feeding the dairy cow. We are feeding the rumen. Right? The rumen is pivotal. And if everything the cow is eating is ending up first in the rumen. So, a question to you. How big is a rumen? You're not allowed to join in. So how big is a rumen? How many kilos can it hold? How many liters can it hold? Or maybe if you don't know about kilos or liters, maybe with your hands. Is it this big, this big, this big? How big is a rumen? Anybody? 150? 150 kg? 150 kg, you believe? Or too big? Too many? How much you think? Often I hear 10 kg, 20 kg, 30 kg, you're shouting 150. Right? So the truth is slightly in the middle, honestly. Right? Often people think the rumen is like 20, 30 kg. The rumen of a cow is this. Imagine you stand in front of a cow. In fact, you're looking at a rumen, covered by skin and bones. Really? There can be more than 100 kilos of feed in there. 100 kilo fresh matter, so 100 liter. Can be 120. 150 is extreme. Right? So you are extreme. But it's good because you were in the ballpark. Bit on the high side, but in the ballpark. What I'm trying to say is the rumen is huge. It's very big. And it's extremely important. There are billions of bacteria, protozoa, fungi. Lots of microbes in there. And they're good. Right? So they help to ferment the forages. We give Napier, we give Kikuyu, we give Stargas, bommeroats. Many people give bommeroats. You give corn silage, and all those bacteria inside the rumen, they adhere, they attach to the forage, and they will eat it. They will break it down to smaller particles, and they will produce energy, and they will produce protein which can be absorbed. Right? So we're not feeding cows. We're feeding bacteria. So, bit to simplify, this is a simplified model. Things go in here, forages, complete feeds, ingredients go in through the front end. Then everything falls into that huge fermentation vessel which is called the rumen. And then inside that fermentation vessel there is bacteria working very hard. And bacteria, in fact, they need protein and they need energy. So in my formulation, I'm taking care of feeding the bacteria. And what is really important in the bacteria, they need energy and protein, both available energy and protein at the same time. Because they live short, they are fast acting, they need a bit of protein and energy. And also, so it needs to be managed. You can compare it to building a brick wall. Who has ever built any brick wall? Like for your house or somewhere. You have done it, you have done it, you have done it. I think many of us have done it. Right? What do you need to build a brick wall? Bricks? Bricks, yes. What else? Cement. Okay. So cement we make out of water and okay, doesn't matter. So we have cement and we have bricks. Suppose you want to build your brick wall and you receive the cement today from the supplier on your farm and you receive the bricks tomorrow. What will happen? So the mixed cement, right? So you mix the cement today, but the bricks are coming tomorrow. What happens? You cannot build the wall because the cement will be hard, right? So we use this analogy sometimes to explain when we're eating the bacteria, we need the bricks and at the same time. We need to have the protein and the energy. We need to. So in my formulation, I take care of this. It looks a bit like this. So if this is time and this is fermentation in the rumen, right? In this fermentation vessel inside here. If we give some sugar, the fermentation speed is very high. The sugar is immediately being fermented by the bacteria. But fibers, the last curve, fibers are being degraded much slower. Right? If we need to run a long distance, like 10k, 20k, or if we're training for a marathon, should we take sugar before we start? Or should we take banana? Anybody knows? We should take bananas. Because if we take sugar, quickly you burn the sugar. 1 kilometer you go very fast, you're exhausted. Because the sugar is already burned, it's already done. Whereas if we feed bananas, the fermentation or the digestion in our own system is slower and we can last longer. Right? So one last, most difficult slide, and then I'll come back again to the surface. This is wheat. This is typical wheat pollet from Kenya, and this is maize germ. Right? First two columns. And the blue line is starch. So we all know, I hope, maize germ is much higher in starch than wheat bran on average. Right? Honestly, I will speak about it a bit later. It's also variable, but starch normally is higher in maize germ, wheat pollard. Now the green bar is the amount of fermentable carbohydrates in the first 2 hours after feeding. Even though the starch level of maize germ is much higher, you are getting exactly the same amount of fermentation in the first 2 hours of the starch in the cow if you're using the wheat pollet. There's less starch in wheat pollet, but it's fermented faster. So in the first 2 hours there is the same amount. Whereas the maize is higher starch, but it's a very slow fermenting. Right? So I take care of that in those bags of feed. I make sure that we have the right rate of fermentation so that you have a low risk of rumen-acidosis, but that you have a maximum fermentation of the feeds. Okay, so we can use this picture. I don't know if you see it, but it's somewhere in between a wild animal you have here in your national reserves and a cow. So we're giving extra power. By using this technology, we're giving extra power to the cow. Right? Higher milk production. Okay. Coming back to what you are doing on your farms. What are we feeding the cows? So approximately 60%, could be 50% too, is roughages. Then the rest is dairy meal or complete feed. Or you are mixing this yourself with the ingredients, doesn't matter. 60% forage, and then the other part being dairy meal. And we should, I think that's your microphone. We should not forget also that small blue part at the top, 1%. Now it doesn't necessarily need to be exactly 1%, but just for memorizing, that is premix, vitamins and minerals. Right? So in our dairy complete feed, those minerals are always included. You don't need to add minerals when you're using our dairy feeds. We do that as a service because it's easier for us to mix it inside, making sure that it's homogeneously mixed throughout the feed, better than you are using the Mazima mineral packs. Difficult to mix it in and to distribute it evenly. So now, if we look at this next picture, this is corn silage and it's very brown, black, and the thermometer inside the corn silage saying, I need to look on my screen, 67.8. So this is a thermometer saying 67.8 degrees Celsius. This is a corn silage which is very hot, which has a lot of molds, which is not palatable for a dairy cow. Something went wrong. Maybe the particle size was too big, maybe it's not compressed well enough, maybe it has been closed too late or not proper. It's not been fermenting properly, right? It's not a high quality, it's a low quality corn silage. Then that other picture, you can't really see it, but it's overgrown grass. Grass that is too tall, that is brown, not green anymore, but brown. If we are using low quality forages, remember my very first slide, we need to balance the requirements of the cow with the nutrition we are giving. If we're giving 50% of that diet with a low quality of forages, we need to supplement with more dairy meal. Then things become more expensive for you. Right? So we would like, and there's a lot of things on the right hand side there, but it says basically if you have poor quality forage, you have a higher disease incidence through mycotoxins, through those low quality forages. You have low production, right? Unless you supplement it with more dairy meal, and then it becomes more more expensive. You have a lower income. So we prefer to see this. And again, I think it's difficult to see, but on the left-hand side, you see a corn silage which is very white. There's lots of grain. There's a lot of starch in that corn silage. Right? It's very well preserved, it's fresh, it's cold. It's full of starch. It has maybe over 30% starch. If you compare that to the low-quality corn silage I just showed with lower starch, obviously there's much more energy in this corn silage here. Meaning that to achieve the same milk production, I need less complete feed. Right? So, you could consider for our business it's better to work with poor quality corn silage or poor quality hay, but it's not true, of course. Because in the end it's about your economics, your sustainability. We help you practically by training to improve on your silages. Because if your silages are performing well, also our feed will blend in better and you will have higher results, higher income. So, just on that topic, what we bring to you, and I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but we have a laboratory here in our factory in Atty River, where we do analysis free of charge for customers. So Roland, as the commercial manager, tends to say, you just need to buy a bag of our feed and you get free analysis, but it's a bit different. So our approach on the farm is, we come to your farm, we try to analyze your forages, we try to help you to do better on the forages for the next crop, and we can advise which feed will fit best. But we offer it free of charge. The silage analysis. Also, we have a machine inside our laboratory in Atty River analyzing ingredients. So if you mix your own dairy meal, we can analyze it as a service. I think some of you have done it already. Also, we know that ingredients, if you buy ingredients like maize germ, wheat bran, you mix your own dairy meal, also we can analyze those. And we see a huge variation, unfortunately. So I have seen soybean meal, which normally has protein of 44 or higher. I have seen samples of soybean meal here with 25% crude protein. Meaning, crude protein, so the soybean meal has been diluted with often soy hulls, ground soy hulls. So there is cheating and trading in the market. There is variability in quality in the market of the raw materials. Right, so we can help you analyze your raw materials. We can help you analyze your dairy meals. In our case, in our feeds, we standardize everything. So for instance, we had a batch of one of our dairy feeds recently. It was 0.5% below the set crude protein level. We reject it ourselves. It goes back into the factory, we rework it to make sure that it reaches the right protein level. And we analyze every batch. And that is something that I think is new to this market, where we really test every batch of ingredients. In principle, if we test all the batches of all our raw materials and if we mix right, we end up at the right protein level, but we still double check that protein level of our feed to make sure that whatever goes to your farm is correct. Right? Okay, that was a small escape to laboratory. Let's go back again to that forage topic. So here you can see different types of forages available in Kenya. So we have kikuyu, we have napier, boma roads, we have stargrass available alongside others. Right? In general terms, we see that on average, napier and rhodes are lower in energy compared to kikuyu. Right? And also in terms of protein, on average, kikuyu is relatively high. We cannot grow kikuyu everywhere, I believe. But what is more important is there is also very high variation. So for instance, if we take napier can be this tall, right? Taller than me, right? Having maybe only 4% crude protein. Or if we cut it short, it can have 18. So it can be very variable in protein level. Right? And that has a huge impact on production. So here is just one slide on that Napier, and it's just this is some examples of the analysis we did, and I appreciate that it's too light to show this properly, and there's too much information here, so I'll tell you. We saw in our own analysis recently, so since we installed that forage analysis like 2-3 months ago, we already analyzed around 100 samples. And the lowest crude protein, in fact, was exactly 4.5%, and the highest was 18.3%. Imagine the effect. You feed your cows on a high Napier, on a tall Napier today. You run out of that, you go to another field, or you're buying, now you're giving this size Napier. You're giving the cow something totally different, right? So the cow wants stability. She always wants the same every day. But also we need to manage that quality. Now if you go to, I'm going to corn silage. With corn it's the same. So this is just some typical examples. We've on the left hand side low starch corn silage, 13%. And on the other side we have a high starch corn silage, 29, close to 30%. So in the one there is a lot of corn, corn cobs and starch. In the other one there is little. Why can this happen? It can happen because we're not harvesting at the right moment. We're also harvesting too early. The cob is not fully grown. The kernels of the cob are not yet matured, and it's not starchy yet. Realistically also, in many cases, the corn cobs are taken out, used for cooking. It's true. Yes? I have seen corn silages with almost zero corn. It's impossible. Right? The cobs have been taken, and even the farmers, they say, yeah, the plant is for the cows, but the corn is for us. Right? Yeah. I can understand the point. But I don't agree. Because the cow needs that starch. Just as an example, this difference in starch, if we're giving a fixed amount of, say, 20 or 30 kilos of corn silage, that difference can cause a 2.1 liter of milk difference. Just exchanging the one silage to the other one. If we're having 30% starch versus 13, that can be a 2 liter milk difference. Right? So consider that when you take the corn for cooking. Right? We want the milk to get money, and then it's better to get the money from milk, buy corn. Really. It's more economical, I can tell you. Okay. Briefly about breeds. We turn the screen a bit. So there's different varieties of corn plants, right? Different breeds. There are breeds to produce corn as a grain for cooking, for selling. It's this one. The corn cob is relatively high in the plant, right? So it catches a lot of sun, it quickly matures, it has a lot of starch. To hold the cob high, the plant needs to be very strong because there's more weight at the top, right? So it's much more fibrous, those breeds. There are other specific breeds which are ideal for making silage. The cob is much lower, and the breeding companies, they make efforts for it to stay green and also for it to be more digestible. Not only the cob, but also the plant, right? And if you have questions about this, we have done a lot of analysis on different silage breeds. And when Christine's back here, she can tell you which breeds we saw outperform the others. I don't know. She's here in the market every day. I'm visiting once in a while. But we can ask her together later on. Let's remind me. Okay, to how to improve on the quality of forages, of course we can choose those different breeds, but also there is a very important point in terms of when are we harvesting. When are we harvesting grasses? Napier, here, or here? Yes? I prefer here. Yes? 1.2 meter, no more. And then cut a couple of times more frequently. It will grow again, right? It just requires us to go often, or more frequently. It requires us a bit, or it requires a bit of planning when we'll cut which plots. Sometimes maybe parts can be overgrown or you have too much. Then you cut part of it and you make hay. You keep it for later. In terms of corn silage, too much information here, too much to talk about right now. But the moment of harvesting corn is crucial. Right? If we wait not long enough, if we go too early, the crop is not yet matured, as I said, we can have low starch levels. If we go too low, too late, the starch is very dry. And the bacteria inside, they have trouble digesting it. Because it's too dry and it's too mature, right? It's difficult for them to digest. So we have practical trainings available. When you are close to harvesting season, we can come and we can bring different farmers to one farm. We can look at the plants and we can talk about it practically. Right? And also we have some sheets of information how you can do it yourself. Okay? Now, I've been talking for nutrition a long time already and have not even spoken about complete feed, the thing we are selling. And it's intentional because forages are more important. But I'll switch now to complete feed. And then the question is, and then I have a couple of remarks first on what is important. So what I said earlier on about our dairy meals, we check the quality of the dairy meals always, and I always formulate to the same energy and protein level. We have seen in the market here people mixing themselves, home mixing, farmers home mix, you maybe home mixing, also other suppliers. We see a lot of variation in quality. We see crude protein going up and down, batch by batch also. Between different suppliers there is variation. So with our quality system in place, we level that. So we are always at the same high quality level. The other thing is about mash versus pellet. So many dairy meals are in mash form. And we are introducing, I think you call it pencils. Right? Pencils? Or cubes? I think it's pencils you call it. The thin ones. Cubes are thicker or cubes are also thin? Thick. I mean the pencils, the thin ones. Yeah. So we call it pellets. You call it pencils, I think. Or pellets. Sorry, that helps. So, pellet. I talk about pellets then. Yeah. So, we're level. If you feed pelleted feed, in principle it's the same. So, for instance, we have a dairy super pellet and a dairy super mesh. Nutritionally, exactly the same. 100% the same. It's just pelletized. Right? And the pelletization gives a couple of examples. It's a couple of benefits. It's easier to handle. It's easier to give. You lose less because it's less dusty. Also cows, especially when we're feeding on top, cows eat it easy. But if you really only feed a mesh, we've seen it yesterday, if you feed a very dry cow feed with a dry mesh, the cows are all dusty, they push it out of the feeding trough and you're losing part of what you have bought at a certain price with us. So pelleted feeds have those benefits. Then quickly introducing our range of feeds. So we have a dry cow pellet, and I will talk about this a bit later. Also, I will talk about the dairy cow feeds a bit in terms of how to feed them. So we have a dry cow pellet only for dry cows. Then we have a dairy power, a dairy super, and a dairy top. The dairy power is 16 crude protein with 880 VEM. I apologize, I could also add an E here, but I haven't done it, sorry, everybody. The super is our improved product. It has 18% crude protein. And the top is the best of the market. The power is close to what you would normally work with as a dairy meal. It's sort of, it's within the normal standards of the Kenyan suppliers of dairy meals. It has the benefit of stable quality, always the same. So you shouldn't have variation in milk production using it. If you want improved milk production, you need to go for Dairy Super. And if you really want to go for top performance, you can use Dairy Top. And I'll talk a bit more about the application later on. Other things we have is we have a calf rearing pellet. We have a beef fattening mesh. And we have a sheep and goat pellet. So this is our range. Now I need to move on also due to time. So I'll talk about what to feed. And I don't know if you can see these two people. There's a female on the right and there's a male on the left. Can you see who that is? That's Kipchoge? Yeah? And that, I don't know, but she's also a high-performing athlete. This one. Right? So, just a question. So, Kipchoge needs to go for a marathon. Right? What will he do before he goes to the marathon? Train. All the time, right? He's going fast, going long, he's going different training programs. Then, today he's going to do the marathon. Okay, he's good at it, he runs very fast, he wins. Or he doesn't win. Doesn't matter, but it's a high performance. What will he do in the next week? He will rest. Right? He doesn't do a marathon tomorrow. It's impossible. Maybe it's possible, it's impossible, I think. Yes? It's the same for this dairy cow. So this dairy cow here, she had just had a lactation, she has maybe a production of let's say per day production of 25 liters of milk throughout the whole lactation. She needs to recover from that. Yes? She has even calf growing inside her. She needs to take care of that. So this cow needs a good transition from the one to the next lactation. So I start my presentation about how to apply our feeds, how to feed our feeds. I purposely start in the dry period because it's crucial for the cow to start the new lactation. Right? Why do cows need a dry period in the first place? Why don't we just continue milking all the time? It needs that rest, right? The udder itself needs a recovery period from the lactation performance. We know that if we do dry period properly, we have higher quality colostrum for the calf. Even we know we have a higher production in the next lactation. Right? There has been research, I think it's interesting, there has been research in the Netherlands where we don't do a dry period. We continue milking until the day of calving. And the idea is, during that maybe 2 months, we have extra milk, right? We don't stop milking, we have 2 months extra milk. Right? It's maybe not high levels of milk in those last 2 months of the lactation, but we have milk. What you clearly see is if we don't give the cow that rest period, her milk production in the next lactation is way less. And the total milk production across those 2 lactations is much lower if you don't have a dry period. So the cow needs it. You need to feed a cow properly because that is also a very sensitive period, as I said. So the calf is growing, the calf is born. It's a risky period in terms of metritis infections. Lactation is starting. It's a risky period in terms of mastitis and also all kind of other metabolic diseases. So we need to feed the cow right. But before we start thinking about feeding the cow in the dry period, first we need to dry it off. And this is specifically interesting or important for high producing cows. If a cow is still producing 20 liters or 15 liters 2 months before calving, how are we bringing her down in milk production? Because bluntly saying, well, yesterday you gave 15 liters of milk, today is a dry period, that is tough. Because the milk is still being generated. And we need to help her reduce her milk production. So we can do that in different ways. First thing is really important, if we follow the lactation of the cow, milk production is after peak it's going down, right? We also need to supplement less dairy meal, less complete feed. then we will help her to reduce her milk production at the end. If we keep on pushing all the time, she will grow fat, not give so much milk. If by the time you want to dry off your cow, she's still high in milk production, just 15 liters, then we can dilute the diet with more hay. So we are giving less energy and she will start to reduce her milk production. We can also milk her once a day. For a couple of days, she will go down in milk production so we can dry her off. Right? So some practical advice. And we want the dry period to be between 45 and 60 days. Not shorter and not longer, because we know that is the ideal duration for the cow physiologically to move to the next lactation. Then before calving, we want to give ad libitum water. Christine was already talking about it. Water is one of the 5 really important things for cows. So always fresh water. And we always want to have them ad libitum forage availability. Don't just give some and then be happy that they're not eating for half the day because you think it's cheap. Because the cows need it to continue the rumen fermentation. There's a calf growing inside, guys. She needs the nutrients. So practically no more than 10 kilos of corn silage per cow per day. Otherwise, the amount of starch in the corn silage will make her fat. And we don't want her to increase fat during the dry period. The rest should be available hay, could also be grass. Then you need to supplement them with that dry cow pellet I just showed, 3 to 4 kilos. To give enough protein and energy, and to give the right dose of minerals for the dairy cows. Then, of course, your quality of forages may be higher or lower. So if you see the cows are increasing in body condition score, you reduce a little bit on the corn silage and a bit on the dairy meal. You give them half a kilo less or a kilo less of the dairy meal. If you're on 4, you can go to 3. Vice versa. If they're decreasing in body condition, you give a bit more. Then, the 2 weeks before calving, give them a little bit more. Because in lactation, we will also give them more dairy meal. So we want the rumen, all those bacteria inside, we want them to get used to digesting more of the dairy meal. Right? We need to train the bacteria a little bit. Then, after calving in the lactation, again, water 24/7. Try to have big enough water troughs so there's no competition over water intake. In the beginning of the lactation, feed high quality roughages. We can help you with that. Feed corn silage, limited amount of hay. I will give some examples later on. And then, just to simplify, we have here a start-up table. So cows in early lactation, they will start up milk production. They will go from 5 to 10 to 20 liters of milk quite fast in the first couple of weeks. And often what we see on Kenyan dairy farms is that all cows are getting the same amount of dairy feed. Right? But it's better to start cows up with this table. First giving them 4 to 5 kilos in the first week, giving them a kilo more in the second week, 1 more in the third week, up to 10 kg in the fourth week. They may not reach 20 liters of milk, but by doing this, building up to the 10 kg, we push them to try to go to a high peak production. I'll explain you why. This peak production here, so this is a lactation. Okay, this is months in lactation, and this is milk production here. If we push cows to a higher peak production, we will have a higher total milk production, because the decline after peak is almost the same for high producing cows and low producing cows. So if we reach here a peak of 20 liters, compared to reaching a peak of 12 liters, we will have, and it's in the table here, we will have much more milk. The 20 peak will give us 4,000 to 5,000 liters of milk, but the peak of 12 will give us only 2,000 to 2,500 liters of milk. Right? So that is the reason why I ask you to feed up in the first couple of weeks to a high level of compound feed. If they then don't reach the milk production, we can decrease again. But then at least we've pushed them to go to a high level. I think Christina already explained, we need to watch out with the body condition score in our feeding program anyway. These are general feeding programs, but if you see your cows are decreasing too much in body condition score, this is again the lactation, now it's in days, and here's the body condition score. If she has a body condition score of 3 and she goes down to 1 or 1.5, she's simply not getting enough nutrients, right? In the early start of the lactation, when milk production is increasing, we're trying to feed as much as possible, but she will always use a little bit of her back fat, and it's fine, yeah, but not too much. 1 point decrease in body condition score between calving date and peak production, otherwise it's too tough for her. If she's going down too fast, we need to feed higher quality forages or a bit more of the dairy complete feed. Now, couple of last slides. Difficult again, but this circle here is the lactation. Cows are calving here, and they're moving through the lactation like this. So this is early lactation with high productions. This is mid lactation, and this is the end of lactation with lower milk productions. Right? Here's the dry period. No milk production. 45 to 60 days. In this first part of the lactation, we want to feed green forages. Short, high protein. We want to feed high quality corn silage. We want to feed the dairy top, the high-end complete feed we have, or super, the middle quality feed. Yeah, super pellet. And we want to build up with that table I showed before. Push them to a high milk production. Right? After that, I need to move the beamer a bit, move the overhead projector a bit. After that, in that second phase, you can continue on the dairy super, or you can move to dairy power, the basic, the standard products. And you can give them based on milk production. A simple rule of thumb is 2 liters of milk, 1 kilo of our feed. Right? So after the peak production, if a cow is giving 20 liters of milk, give them 10 kg of the complete feed. It's not always true, because it also depends on the quality of the silage. But okay, you need to have a starting point. This is a starting point. From there, you can move up and down. Also, for your farm individually, we can also make individual rations. But this is just a sort of golden rule of thumb, trying to explain nutrition and trying to give you a basic guideline which you can work with. So, 2 other remarks. Lower amounts than 5 kilo of the dairy complete feed for lactating cows is actually not giving enough vitamins and minerals. So I have a fixed amount of vitamins and minerals in the dairy feed. And if you're below the 5 kilo, it's okay for a short period at the end of lactation, but not too long. If you feed only 2 kilos of our dairy feed, honestly, we are undersupplying in terms of minerals. So you need that 5 kilos to give enough vitamin A, D, E, copper, zinc, manganese, everything. The other thing is we need to have a minimum of roughage intake always. And here, as a simple rule of thumb, 8 kilos of dry matter roughage. Right? But I mean 8 kilos of dry matter, not 8 kilo of products. So for instance, if we talk corn silage, 25% dry matter, 75% water. It means 4 times this amount. It means we need 32 kilos of corn silage. Yes, if we're talking fresh Napier, 55 kilos. If you're feeding less of that, you are constraining them. I don't want to see an empty trough. Right? Cows cannot make milk from air. They need the nutrients. Right? Have you ever seen a cow producing milk from air? Doesn't happen. She will use her back fat. She will go skinnier. Right? It's important. So, then I already spoke about our range of feeds. Then I have, I think, one example which is totally unreadable. So I will explain you. This example has 23 kilos of Napier, 23 kilos of corn silage fresh. Right? 50-50. The Napier has 13% crude protein, which is sort of average. Right? Here-ish. Yes? Then, in this example here on the left-hand side, a standard dairy meal is being used just from wherever bought in the market. 11 kilos, and 1 kilo of maize germ is being added. It's often done. So you buy a dairy meal and you add maize germ to it. That will then give us a milk production of 21.8 liters of milk. Could be, right? Depending also on breed, but ballpark figure, right? And interesting to know, SDVE, so the metabolizable protein, so the protein produced by those bacteria, is the constraining factor. So there is enough energy to produce more milk. The protein is limiting to 21.8. If you exchange this, and honestly, I must say, the corn silage being used here is a low quality one, low starch. If we switch to the exact same ration, and we switch from a low quality to a high quality corn silage, I'm expecting 25 liters of milk. 25. So the impact of forage quality on the milk production of the dairy cows is immense. Right? It's immense. Now I have two other comparisons. So I'm back to the poor quality corn silage. Right? I'm back at 21.8 milk production. Now what I do is I take out the locally produced dairy meal. I take out the maize germ, both of them. Together they are 12 kilo. I bring in my dairy super, 12 kilos. Right? And I can tell you, the dairy super is more expensive than the local dairy meal. The figures are used, and you cannot see it here, but the figure, okay, that's not well. The dairy super is more expensive. Right? Because also I need money to make a high quality feed. I need to use high quality ingredients to reach there. If I compare the first column and I feed exactly the same forages and I exchange the dairy meal with our dairy super, I go from 21.8 to 25 point something. Simply because protein was constrained here and I'm adding high quality protein, which was the constraining factor. Right? And that investment is being paid off. Because the extra milk will easily pay for the higher price of the feed. But we need to consider that we invest first in a higher quality and then get the higher milk production. If we do the combination of high quality silage and the high quality feed, here even we can reach to 28.5 liters of milk. So I'm just wrapping it up with a practical example showing the importance of forage quality. It's the first thing for us, all of us, to work on, and the importance also of a high quality dairy feed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sander. Good people, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a round of applause, please, if you could. And as we do that, we can be on our toes. Let's stand a little bit. We stretch as we do that. Before the next speaker come in, and we want to wrap it up all. So let us stretch. Let us stretch. Whichever direction you want to stretch, just stretch. Then turn to the person next to you and ask that person, if you are given an opportunity today to change one thing in the world, what would that be? With everything you've heard from all the speakers in the morning, and now Sander wrapping it up all with the figures, with what you're supposed to give your cow, change one thing in the world. And as you do that, you keep stretching. Keep stretching. Okay, that's very good to hear. So the next exercise we are going to do before Christine continues is I would like you to keep quiet. Keep quiet and stand straight like this. and with your face focus and your eyes focus. Okay? Don't look at me. Look at whatever you are seeing. And as you do that, I would like you to make 2 steps to your left. Okay? So when I say ta, you make 2 steps to your left and you stop where you are. Okay? All right. Let's begin. Stand straight. Keep focusing. 2 steps to your right. There are others still waiting for left. 2 steps to your left. Close your eyes. Yeah, close your eyes. And maintain the momentum of just thinking of what has been said. And as you do that, as you keep closing your eyes, you breathe in slowly. Let us breathe in. You breathe in slowly. We don't want to hear that sound of just breathe in slowly. And you breathe out slowly while closing your eyes. Again, you breathe in slowly. Keep closing your eyes. Now open your eyes and breathe out slowly. And with that momentum, sit down slowly to your seat. So we have the fresh air, okay? So Christine is coming to continue, and I will talk about calf management, poultry and pig, but of course she'll continue from where she left it. Karibu sana, Christine.
So now let's talk about the future. So the future is the calf. Because today a calf, tomorrow is a cow. So what I'm going to train today is we focus on rearing why. Also, what is the goal of calf rearing, the rearing advice, and the take-home message. So it will be just short. So this is the part I always call them the hotel. So calf rearing, young stock management, or young stock part in the hotel. This is the hotel. So why do I call it hotel? Is because this is a part of your herd that you're not getting anything at that moment. So you're just spending money on them because of what? The future. So the only thing you're not getting now is the bill. But every time you feed, every moment you spend on that calf, that is a bill you are getting. So make your hotel short, make your hotel small, so that you can rear them fast. After 2 years, they are in lactation and they are giving you money. So that is the whole idea. You make your hotel short and you spend, a little bit more but short than spending less but longer time. So we just want to shorten the hotel. Then another thing about the hotel is that make sure that your hotel is not big. Because if your hotel is big in terms of numbers, you find that the number which is in production should be the number that can feed itself, and also the remaining income can feed the young stock and still give you something. You see how the herd structure goes? So you make sure that 50% of your herd is in lactation, then at least half of your the mature cows, those are the young stock. So how do you manage that? You make sure that your rearing is fast. You rear them so fast. Also have a goal. Do I need to expand my farm so I'm keeping all the heifers, or I need to sell them some? So if you're like, I am okay with this number, but I have this number of heifers, so I'll just select a few which are the best, then I sell the rest. So at least what you get from them will help you also to run the farm, instead of keeping a lot of young stock without what? Without enough money or enough income to manage them. So go back to your farms, look at the numbers, how big is your hotel, and how far are you with your hotel, then try to adjust. Kuna zile ndama, they will not even reach kwa kamba. So those one, you just call them as early as now, because those one maybe you messed at some point and you know that you cannot do anything with this. So like, maybe I have 4. Select out of 4, which one you still want to keep them. Then the rest you just release them. You get money to keep what you have. Tumeelewana? So that is all about the hotel. So let's always make sure that our hotel is not that big. So why is rearing important? Rearing is important because it's cheaper. I know sometimes people think it's expensive to rear a calf, but it is cheaper now to rear your own calf than buying a cow which you don't know. And I always tell a farmer, there are only 2 people who can give you a good cow. A person who was selling a cow maybe out of emergency because there's something that was pressuring this farmer, then he was like, no, let me just let this go. Or a breeder. But the rest, you only select the best and you sell the rest. See, that is what is happening. So you only rear the best. But ingine, what you sell out, what you are being sold out here is just nile nye mtu amechoka now, select the few and they're like, this one I can do without them, then you're selling. So it's cheaper to rear yours. Sometimes it might look expensive, but remember that you rear her so fast. 2 years ameshaza, because we'll serve that cow with 13-14 months, that heifer with 13-14 months, then calving down 23-24 months, then you are able to like akulipe mapema, because what will happen, the first calf or the first lactation will be like paying the deni for the rearing. Then the second lactation will be like there is increased milk. So what she does, half of it finish the deni, and then the half is now your profit. Now the third lactation, that is when now ameshafika mwisho, like amelipa deni. You understand? So make sure that you rear them so fast, have so many number of lactations, then they'll be able to pay you back. Also, it's important because you've seen there 17% of the total cost in a dairy farm is from the rearing. So if you prolong them, you're like, inakuwa hasara in the long run, because what you are getting from your cows will not be enough to even feed the current herd, the milking herd, and also feed the heifers. And at that time, your total cost will go high. So make sure that we are making the cost to the rearing short so that they can grow. Another thing is, why it's important is because of, we will optimize age at first calving. We'll get that 24 months of first calving. And at that time, that calf will be in good shape, because the first 3 months, that is where we develop our cows. That is where the rumen is being developed, where the udder and the liver. So if we mess in the rearing period, we don't have a good cow in the future. So, and we will not optimize that first age at calving. Also, another thing, we'll have a better first lactation, because, I mean, if we reared that calf well, I always use an example of when we are doing a construction, we always concentrate on the foundation. Sindio? We make sure that the slab is good, the slab is strong enough to carry the weight of the house. So the same with a cow and a calf. If we need a good foundation, if we need a good cow in the future, the foundation must be good. So when we mess with the foundation, by the time we are getting to lactation point, they are starting at lower, because the rumen was not well developed. There was a delay somewhere during the rearing phase, and maybe some of the organs did grow well. Then we will not have a good cow in the future. So those are the things we need to know. Make sure that every time you are rearing that calf, that is your foundation. Build a foundation. Make a slab to be strong so that you can have a good cow. And then another thing, we want to achieve the first insemination age faster. I always tell a farmer, that cow, that heifer will not show any heat sign until it has achieved a certain age. So it can take 2 years, 3 years. Before that age, that weight is achieved, we will prolong this first insemination age. Because for her, she'll be like, I am not ready. So what I need to do is to still grow. So the more you prolong that growth, you end up sometimes getting heifers coming on heat at 2 years. So remember, hiyo deni atamaliza kulipa lini. If they start like the first insemination, it will be 2 years. So and add another 9 months. By the time you are getting first calf, instead of in those 3 lactation, you could have been having 3 calves. You'll be having how many calves? 2 calves or 2 lactation. So those are the things we really need to see. Another thing is reduce mortalities. If we don't rear well, if we don't concentrate on that foundation, they will die. Because you know, a calf, when she's born without immunity. So we are transferring immunity from the mother to the calf. So if that transition is not well done, if we don't rear them, most of them die. Also where they stay, as we go on, we'll see the ventilation. Sometimes we think they are feeling cold, but it is us who are killing them. Because if we enclose everywhere, no aeration, no anything, they dung there. There is a lot of urine. So that is ammonia. So it affects their respiratory system. And sometimes you hear them coughing. Sometimes they have teary eyes because of ammonia. So those are the things, they cause mortalities, and we end up getting pneumonia, then they die. So, and there are some cases of, there's percentages of mortalities. Most happen during stillbirths, or we have stillbirth deaths, or less than 24 hours once they've been born. They mostly range between 6 to 12%. Then another cause of mortalities is diarrhea, kuendesha. And I always tell farmers, this is a very serious problem. Once your calf diarrhea, sometimes getting back to where it was, it's really hard. So make sure that this diarrhea is not, is something that you really need to make sure that you don't incur in your farms. Feed well, correct temperatures, hygiene, and all that. And then the lung problems also happens between week 3 to week 8. So this one occurs mostly because of ventilation. We feel like they're feeling cold, they're small. So we tend to put them in so enclosed areas, but we end up killing them because of lung problem. Then 0 to 1 years also, there's some the maximum we can do is 8%. And also mortality between 1 and 2 years should be limited, because these are already all grown. Maybe it's an accident and all that, but these lung problems and other diseases we need to avoid during that period. So, as we proceed, so our rearing goal, it's only that this thing is good. So, our rearing goal, we want to have a good height, and so we check the height and the length. This is where we want to have a good space, because this is our factory. If we don't have a good space or good, like enough space for our factory, it means this cow, when she grows, we will have less milk. Because if the capacity of our factory is less, no matter how much we put in, it will still have a limit. And this will limit also our production. So the rearing goal is to make sure that we have well-developed heifers who are long enough. The length is good also, so that we can have a good space for the rumen. Because without rumen, we don't have a cow. So this is the factory, and we really need to factor in. Another thing, we need a very good body condition. We don't have these hay bellies where sometimes you find that they are hanging. And this is hanging because we are concentrating on making sure that we have a big factory, but now we are not concentrating on the frame. Because if we don't concentrate on the frame, it means kuwa hii kitu itakuwa na space. And that is why sometimes you find most farmers, we have calves with hay bellies. Another thing also, we need high production. High production will come from here. Because if this factory is big enough to accommodate good amount of dry matter intake that we want, we'll have good production. Then another thing is the longevity. we want a calf which is well developed so that it can do more than 3, even 4 lactation, even 5 lactation. Because a third lactation, that is where we are breaking even. So we need more than this, because this is where we want to get money from this cow. So those are the things we need to see. Also, so here is, so this is what happens in our farms. If we don't take care of our calves, instead of having these long, we end up having short, and this is the stomach I was talking about. We call them hay bellies. So what happens here is that this sagging rumen or belly is that we fed this calf with a lot of fiber, hay mingi, bila protein. Then what happened? The rumen, which is the muscle, it grows big, but now the problem is no protein in the diet to grow this frame. So they end up looking like this, and at the end of the day you find that these calves, they take long to come on heat. And also another thing, they, even if they come on heat and we serve them, we'll start at lower level of milk production. So make sure that they are lean. They have a body condition score of 3 to 3.5. They are not that big and they are not small. Then, so we have a data that was collected. You see that if we inseminate them at early, when they are not well mature, and they calve down at 21 months, live production, this is the liters, it's 21,330. If we let them to mature well, and then they inseminate them at 14, 16 months, at least this is where the milk is. So as much as we want milk, we want to make sure that they are well mature, they are well developed, so that we can achieve this. We don't want this, because if we delay, we end up here. So at 26, 27, we inseminated that calf like after 18 months or even at 18 months. Then you see, we start lactation, or we'll get less milk from that cow. So let's make sure that they are well mature, they are at the correct age and weight, and then we get the best calves that will give us maximum milk production. We want these between 36 and 38. So that is where we want. Now, this is a guideline that will help us when we are rearing calves. So, when this is their birth weight, so this is where they start. By the time they are at 3 months, we are weaning them, they should be double the birth weight. By the time they are half a year, not half a year, they are 1 year, they need to be 50 to 55% of their body weight. So for example, if a cow is weighing 600 kilos, the mature cow is weighing 600 kilos. So at breeding, that cow should be 50 to 55%. That is almost 250 to 300 kilos. So by the time the first calving, she's still growing. That is why you find first lactation, milk bado iko chini. So at this stage, she will grow the first lactation. Second lactation, bado she's still growing. Third lactation, this is where now she's no longer growing. She's mature. So if we don't do well here, we'll prolong this, because by the time she's fast, she's still small. So she will still at the third calving, still growing. And by that time, hatakuwa may release all the milk to you. So those are the things you need to make sure that you go with the guideline. Go with your mature cows. What is their age? Now go back. You're like, at maybe the birth weight is 40. So meaning at 3 months, they need to be more than double the birth weight. That is 80 to 90. So let's say they are 90 kilos at 3 months. So by the time they are 6 months, so we make sure that they are growing 1 kilo per day. So 90 plus, if they are 90, so at 3 months, they'll be so 120. At 6 months, they need to double that. Because now you see at 6 months they should be between 240 to 300. Mnaelewa venye nasema? So where they need to be growing well is 3 to 6 months. That is where they have a potential there to grow, and by that time they need more feed. So you find that where we fail as farmers is that the first 3 months they are growing so well because they are getting milk and all that. And then after milk, we withdraw milk, wanafanya nini? They go down. Because now we neglect them. We left them to hay without even enough pellets, and they go down. So we need also to have a weighing band. So this is the band. People, if you don't have a scale, you can use this a weighing band. This is how you measure. You measure here on the girth. So this will help you to know every month wana grow aje. So this is a graph. Every month you come and say this was 0 month. After 2 months or even 1 month, she's here. So this graph has to be going up. This has gone down because at this point she was pregnant. Now she has calved down. So this is it goes down because of the weight of the calf has been removed. But from there now she still also to grow. So first lactation, second lactation, and third lactation. So this guideline will help you to know, am I on the standard or below the standard? So every time you come and you put you as you are here, like maybe 8 months, are you up here with the standard or below the standard? So let's have a norm of weighing our calves every month, because it's easier to correct it at first month than waiting for 3 months or more than 3 months to do a correction. So what is the rearing advice now? So these are the first 3 months. I say this is where we are developing the rumen. When a calf is born, this is how the rumen looks like. You see, when you go and buy matumbo, that towel-like. So mnajua that towel-like, that is the rumen. So that towel-like haiko inakuanga hivi. So we need to develop from this to this. So for us to get this, we need pellets and hay from the first week, or even we can start as early as 3rd day. So the first picture, this is someone who only fed her calf milk alone. Sometimes we do milk for 3 months. The calf looks so good from outside, but inside the rumen is not developed. This one, sometimes you find milk and a bit of hay. Then you see some growth kwa umbali. It's not like visible. But now if you combine now milk, pellets, and hay, you are getting now a well-grown rumen like this. So most farmers, we tend to give a lot of milk here. We forget that this is a ruminant. At some point we will stop milk, and we need to develop this rumen. So that is what we've been doing. Tunampatia maziwa asubuhi 2 liters, 2 liters, 2 liters. 2 liters asubuhi, 2 liters saa 7, 2 liters jioni. That calves look so good at the end of 3 months. But is she good inside? Because this one will take time for her to develop again the rumen, so that she can now start doing she can start now digesting feeds. So like if you are 3 months, she goes back again 3 months, even up to more than 3 months, to make sure that it goes here. That we are wasting time. We are losing that calf. So make sure that tuna develop rumen from first week. Give her pellets, give her water, give her hay. So this is what we have, a very good hay here. We have water, and pellets is somewhere here. So make sure that they get enough colostrum, because this is where the immunity is very important. Then we can use milk or milk replacer. Make sure that they get water, and then pellets, and also roughage, which is hay or straw. 0 to 6 months, we should not feed silage. I've seen farmers making a mistake of introducing silage at 3 months, some even less than 3 months. We should not feed silage until huyo ndama afike 6 months. Because if we do silage mapema, we are now disrupting, like most of the cases tunakuanga na issues at diarrhea, or even that we are affecting the rumen development. Sawa sawa. So no silage up to 6 months. You can start introducing at the end of the 5th month, because at that time the rumen now is developed and it can accommodate the silage. Now, what are the goals? We want high growth. And this high growth, nimesema, the first 3 months, we usually say we can do 0.8 kilos per day. 3 to 6 months, 1 kilo per day. That is the growth. So that we can achieve that 14 to 16 months insemination. So this high growth, we make sure that we start from the foundation. Make sure that you double. But most farmers achieve that. You could double birth weight at weaning. We always achieve that because we give them a lot of milk. They grow so well. They are shiny. They are nice. But now, after stopping milk, that is where the problem comes in. So let's make sure that we maintain that growth. And where they have a potential to grow so fast, need 3 to 6 months. Ni kama tule tu vijana tudogo to 7-9 years. That is where they eat a lot and they also have a potential to grow. Same also applies to our calves. And also, make sure that by the time you are weaning that calf, she is able to eat 1.5 kilograms pellets. So the first month you start na 0.5. By the time to reduce maziwa, we increase. The second month, we go to 1 kilo. By the 1 kilo per day. By the time we are going to the 3rd month, she is able to eat 1.5 kilos pellets. So, what unasemanga, things that can help you when you want to wean, you check. Double the birth weight, and at the same time, she can be able to eat 1.5 kilos pellets. Sometimes I know farmers complain, it's expensive and all that, but remember the hoteli. If ukieka mkono ikue gum, that hotel will take time. Sindio? So it's better. Sometimes cheap is expensive in the long run because you will rear for long. So you'll be like, let me just give them small amounts of pellets, but you will do those small amounts for longer compared to someone who was like, let me do this faster. They go, they bring back milk, then they start paying their debt. So. Then, another thing also, we have, after colostrum, we can do calf milk replacers, and also we can do whole milk. When you do milk replacer, this is a completely in a replace maziwa. Like we don't do mixed feeding here. So make sure that they do enough milk replacers. And also sometimes you see we need to have a schedule where you start slow, then you build up for some time. So unaweza anza 4 liters, ukuje 6 liters, then you start coming to 4, 3, 2, then 1. So we have a schedule that will help them to grow well, and by the time also we need to stop because these are ruminant. We also need to make sure that we come down slowly, and that coming down, that is stress. So I always tell farmers, you introduce stress gradually. Start fast because when they are 0 to 3 months, they live individually. They stay in individual pens. So the second month, we bring them together in group pens. Now we still continue with milk. So to introduce stress ya kwanza ya kuweka kwa groups. So they are like, oh. So after introducing them in groups, now we stop milk in the 3rd. So by the time you are stopping, at least amezoea mwenzake, and at the same time ukileta stress ingine ya kutoa maziwa, at least hata kuwa na stress ngapi? Double. But what farmers do is that 3rd month we stop milk and we put them in groups. She's used to staying alone for 3 months. But now she's with another calf, not used to staying with her, so they start fighting. It's stress to them. So introduce stress gradually. So we have milk replacers. And yesterday we visited some farms around here, and we could see that most farmers here, they sell milk at 70, at least 60 shillings. So sometimes, because that money is so good, you want money, sometimes you end up feeding that calf maziwa kidogo. So sometimes it's better, if you want to sell that milk, you can sell all the milk and then you buy milk replacer. The good thing with milk replacer is that mafuta imetolewa. That is, when those who are feeding whole milk, immediately after feeding a calf, anafanyanga nini? When you feed a calf milk, wanafanyanga nini? What do? Wanalala. So they take another 2 hours ya kulala. Because what happens, milk has a lot of fat. So it takes time to digest. Then, for those who are doing 3 feedings, by the time she starts to feel like, now I want to eat something else, the second milk comes. So that calf drinks milk, go to sleep. Then, by the time jaingine in the afternoon comes, in the evening comes, maziwa jioni imekuja, that calf hatawahi sikia njaa. So what happens? Hakuli nini? Hakuli pellets na hakuli hay. So she grows so well. But remember, ana grow well mwili. But what about the rumen? Sinimeonyesha picture of how it grows. So sometimes it's good, give milk replacer. The fat, it doesn't have high fat content. Also, iko na vitamins na minerals. And also, if you compare economics, if you reconstitute milk replacer, because that 25 kilos out there, inatengeneza 200 liters ya maziwa. So meaning per kg, you can go for, now we are selling it, it used to be 45, but iliongezeka, so ni 48 shillings. So anyone doing 49 shillings and above, kama unataka mambo na economics, you are making money. If you want also to help your calf to eat the solids, you can also use milk replacer. So milk replacer is good, but if prepared correctly. Most farmers have experienced issues of diarrhea because, one, mixed feeding. We want to give 1 liter milk replacer, 1 liter whole milk. For sure they will diarrhea. Feeding temperatures. You need to mix. So, tukienda kwa the next slide. Una heat maji 40 to 50 degrees. Then, ukienda more than that, and then uongeze the powder, it will denature the proteins. So we want 40 to 50 degrees. Si moto sana yenye imechemka, then you have to mix it well. So tunasema 1 kilo of calf pellets, calf milk replacer, plus 7 liters ya hiyo maji moto yenye umeweka, makes 8 liters of milk. So that bag there, so unasema 25 times 8 inakupatia 200 liters. So that one is enough for you to feed. So if for 3 months you need 1 bag and a half for you to finish the rearing period. So it is a good product. It's good for those who are selling milk above 49 shillings and above, but you have to mix it well so you to get the results. Now, so after weaning, this is where the problem is, and most calves, they don't grow well because at this point we are not feeding milk. So instead of adding more pellets, because 3 to 6 months we feed 3 kilos, so now we double what they were getting 0. So now we double, they do 3 kilos of pellets, very good hay ad lib. You don't like unawekea tu hapo mbele. Then also you can introduce Napier. For those who have sweet potato vines, you can introduce at this stage. And know that 10 kilos of fresh of sweet potato vines is 2 kilograms dry matter, which is the same as 1 kilo of a very good dairy meal. So if you are feeding sweet potato vines, you need to have a good amount. Not yenye unatoa tu umekata kidogo na umewapea. And also those vines, they need to be more leaves, because protein is in more leaves. It's more in the leaves, not on the cambers. Sawa sawa. So here now we utilize the high growth potential, because this is where they grow so fast. We make sure that we maximize their growth. We feed hay, pellets, Napier, those with sweet potato vines, even Lucerne, Desmodium, we can do at this point. So no silage till they are 6 months old, and then also make sure that you maintain a good body condition score. We said of 3.5 maximum. So housing, we need to house them individually for 2 months maximum. Then we put them into groups, but also when we put them in groups, make sure that it's not this big group. Because sometimes when we tend to have these big groups, we always have bullies who tends to push others who are small-bodied. So make sure that we group them according to size and also to age. Also, the hygiene of pens, they need to be clean, well aerated, and free from water, the drought. Because if we want to keep them healthy, we want to make sure that they grow so well, they need to have that well aerated houses. So this is the age between 8 to 14 months. This is where now we introduce heifer meal. We also feed them silage from here. And also we are now preparing them for insemination. So we don't want them to get so big. So here we make sure that even the feeds that we are giving them, less energy, less protein also. And that is why we introduce heifer meal, which has less protein and energy, because we just want to maintain that body condition of 3. If it goes down 2.7, at least not so big and not so thin. Now, what is the take-home message? When you go back, know that rearing is important. And also, we have to do it so fast so that we can decrease the age of fast calving. Also, we need to increase pre- and post-weaning growth, because this is where most farmers fail. This is where we waste time. This is where prolongs our fast insemination age. And also, early development, it determines the benefit from the genetic potential. We have good genetics. We are using best semen. So let's make sure that we rear them well. We make sure that the foundation, which is the colostrum, is the best, because this is where our foundation comes from. Give them enough colostrum. Do it at least the first 30 minutes she's born. Also, you can use calf or milk feeding program so that it helps you also to know the amounts to feed, and also the right time to introduce the pellets, and also make sure that also we maximum early age growth so that we can control post-breeding growth. Sawa sawa. Thank you. Nani ako na swali?
Yes, my name is Sam. Farmer, small-scale farmer from Kericho. I want to say thank you so much for the information. Excellent, very relevant. And one comment first, because of the screen picture we were unable to see. I hope you will share with us the presentation on the registered emails so that we can follow. Thank you. Yes. And now, you raised an important point. You mentioned about heifers. You call it hay belly or pot belly. If a farmer has made a mistake and is in that stage of where you have a calf of 11 months, 12 months, is still on that stage of hay belly, how do you correct that to make sure that you recover the lost time or the investment? What's the remedy? Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes we say makosa imefanyika. So when makosa imefanyika, what we do for now, because we cannot go back in terms of age and all that, but you can still help to improve, even if it's not that improving per se. So for now, we give her food with correct amount of protein, so that we want to develop that frame. Because the only problem is the frame. The rumen is growing, but the frame is not growing. So we want that frame to go up, so at least there is growth. Proteins will do good there. That will take time. Because the first month, kwanza, is correction. First and second month, maybe third month, we'll start seeing some results. Because first and second is like, we call compensatory. Then now, from third, you'll start now seeing changes. You want to talk? Yes. Any other question? Yeah, if you use, yes, you can use dairy meal, but very good protein level of 18. We say a minimum of 19% protein, good starch. Yes. Yeah. If you don't have the pellets, but we have pellets, good pellets. I'm not in sales, but I'm not like trying to tell you that I'm selling. But if you don't have pellets or you cannot get access to good pellets, you can use your own dairy mill. But that dairy mill should be at least 18% crude protein, 22 starch to 25% starch. So that good dairy mill, that your high yield dairy mill, ndio utalisha ndama. But tuko na pellets. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, mostly deworming happens. We don't, the first 3 months they are enclosed, they are inside. So sometimes you find the first 3 months we don't deworm them. But if they are grazing outside, going outside, from 2 months you can do that. Some farmers do it at first, end up with a lot of diarrhea because the stomach is still not that strong. So because if they are well enclosed in a place where it's clean and all that, you can, the first 3 months, cannot deworm them. Yeah. He's asking, when we were doing the manure analysis, the one we pass it through the sieve. So the whole idea was first to check on the undigested particles to see if the rumen is working, and also to see if the grains are there. So maybe you can correct your the machine you use for crushing your maize germ or your maize silage. And also sometimes also we want to see the feed efficiency. That is why I said you put it back to that 1 liter. Then you see ilikuwa imefika wapi. If it was half, it has to be half na kuteremka. Like the one that you've washed. So you wash, you pass through that sieve. Then you have to take the remains back to your 1 liter. Then to pime. So if it's half, more than half, it's like if your feed efficiency was not good. So meaning half of the liter. So meaning what you fed was a lot of fiber. It was a lot of fiber and all that. So unapata at the end of it all, what you are doing is you are producing more manure than, because for feed efficiency we want what we fed a cow, at least 70% itumike kwa production part. Sawa. Swali lingine.
Warm a cow, as human being, we are not consuming that milk. Will it be suitable for calf? A 2 weeks or a 1 week old calf?
Yeah, it will be suitable. It's okay. We can use that kumpatia, but also we need to limit the feeding, because it's not that because we are not drinking that milk, you give whole milk to the calf. So you can still feed that 2 liters you've been feeding or 3 liters. It's okay. It also acts like you are deworming her indirectly. So at that point, in that situation where you're feeding that milk to the calf and already ulikuwa umemdeworm, that's an overdose. Unaona venye inakuja? Yes.
My question is about the calf. If it's being fed light, like you have described, and then it asks for artificial insemination, is there an early age that you would say that this is too early, a mid-date to a later date, like Yes, is 1 year.
So
That
1 year,
is-
that is 12 plus 9 that is 21. Sindio?
Yes.
So she'll come at 21. And that is why, let me take this back again and show you the graph. Inaonekana kama imezidi. So from the graph, we are seeing imepotea sasa vizuri. This last time ilikuwa inaonekana. So we were seeing like when they carved down at 21, life production maziwa is less. Because this one, she was not well developed. Sindio? At 22 is still less. At 23, 24, at least tunapata, this is where ako well developed. So in this situation, you delay her. Like unaweza rukisha. Because if you inseminate her at 1 year, she's not well developed in terms of bado ni kasichana kadogo. You're getting my point? And that is why this also will affect life production yake because hakuwa amemature. So, and that is why we are saying at 23, if she comes down at 23 or 24, you see venye mazo iko juu. Because at that time alikuwa, so meaning at that 14 months, alikuwa fully grown. Now, alikuwa able, ata akizaa, part of what you'll be feeding her will not be used for growth. Yes, she's still growing, but at least ako mahali. Umeelewa?
Then my second question is about feeding about, don't remember the name, sorry. All right. Is on silage between yellow maize and white maize silage. Their preference, is there a better one than the other?
So, as a general first comment, I would like to look at the data. So we are analyzing, as of 2 months ago, different silages. So we're more and more silages coming in. So we will be able to judge the quality of yellow and white in time. But from previous history, I know yellow maize normally is more common as a corn silage breed compared to white maize. So I have a slight preference for the yellow maize as a maize silage. I think in addition, when we were talking about maize silage previously, I think we promised to come back on our knowledge about breeds. Right, so because we have done quite some analysis previously through an intern, I think we got to know quite well which are the better breeds to use for silage and which are the ones giving slightly lower quality responses. So I think that's even more important. So maybe Christine, can you elaborate a little bit on the different breeds because you know better than I?
Oh, so last year we did something like a research. So we were analyzing silages across the region. So North Rift, Central, and Mount Kenya, that is Meru part. Then from the analysis we saw that Pana 691M was giving us a higher starch. We are getting up to 30, 33. Then it was followed by DK 777. So also that one had a good starch. And the lowest one was 6218. I mean 6213. 6213, the one from Kenya Seed. It was long, so it has more yields, but also the problem is the cob. So you have a lot of fiber, but the starch was less. So those are the things also we saw from the analysis. And also for Pana, the interesting thing was it's a stay green. So what happens is, it's already at the dove stage or late dove stage, you stage
challenging because maybe many of us have there. So if you go from there, okay, 1.5 meter is nice. 120 is better, right? And it's a challenge for us because we need to think, we need to forecast in terms of growth, and at a certain stage we need to cut it. We may not need so much for our dairy cows, so we may need to make hay from that and keep some for other cows. Maybe even we can make a silage out of it if there is enough, right? Quality? Yeah, good. Yeah, that's a question we had before. Theoretically, you would expect that if a grass grows real fast with more water, it would be slightly diluted, but we do not say that. We do not see that. We see much more variation in height than in season. Yes? Okay, your question? Yes. Mm-hmm. No, so Christine is much more, she knows much more about Napier and making silage here. She has experience on the farm, so I'll pass the question on to her.
So for Napier, we cannot make hay because it has a lot of water. So by the time we want to achieve that 90-something dry matter, it will be like all of them in Akwakuni. So we cannot do for that.
Stargrass we can do.
Yeah, Boba roads can do. Yeah. So the silage part where we fail because most of them they rot. So what we do, we always tell a farmer 3 to 4 days, like give it 3 to 4 days of like a bit wilting, but also there also quality goes down because you're trying to dry it kinda. Let's say to dry it. So you dry it or you wilt it for 3 to 4 days, then chop it well, the small. Then also for molasses part, you have to dilute 1 to 1 or sometimes even put without diluting it. But the problem is so sticky, so to apply it is a problem. So you dilute 1 liter of molasses, 1 liter of this. And also I've seen farmers, because we've done like one with control, like one you don't you ensile without just molasses. The other one we used maize jam or the flour, the maize flour. So this one with the maize flour, because of that flour, it helps in managing the dry matter, the moisture and all that. So it was a better, we had few losses on these compared to these with a lot of water. And also some even they go to an extent, they add molar plants, then it becomes messy. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. There were more questions on this row. Yes? Okay, bring it on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question is related to milk yields. I was talking about 30-35 liters of milk production, and you said maybe they can even go higher in milk production. They can go in their peak. Is it true or not? Right? Okay, so I was talking about average milk production. So I think maybe you refer to, for instance, my story about Spain, average milk production 40 liters. Right? So in a lactation curve of a cow, if you produce 40 liters on average, your peak milk production is 70. Right? What was your maximum milk production of your best cow in the peak? 70 kg. So we think it's not possible, right? With very high genetics, with very good nutrition, cows do peak at very high levels of milk production. And then they go down to reach an average of 40 or 35. So it's all nice to talk about this, but also let's face reality. We have a lot of heat stress here. Forage quality is not to that level. genetics. We need to make steps in genetics, bringing in worldwide sires, bringing in CRV Dutch genetics, bringing in higher genetics before we can reach that. We need cows that are this size, right? Very tall cows, being able to ferment a lot of forages and be supplemented. Yeah, but those peak productions, they are not hype, they are reality. But let's look at what we can achieve here. If you achieve a decent milk production with 25 on average, or even a bit more, if you can have a couple of high yielders touching 40, 45 liters, man, you're doing exceptionally good already. Yes, you want to ask a question? Yes. Yes. You come from Meru? Rowland? Yes. Rowland? There's a question about availability of feed, so I'm going to bring you forward. Yes.
I understand and appreciate that you're new. Sometimes back I called and I'm told that there's an agent in Meru town, but you find that the county is quite vast, and I believe that is the same experience with most of the farmers here. So the factor that we consider when sourcing for feeds is accessibility and the cost of transporting them. So should I source them from a far distance? That means increasing the cost of feeds and accessibility and all that. So my imagination was, or my idea is, I don't know whether you've tried to partner with dairy cooperatives, the smaller ones. There's the union, and then there is the smaller societies, because they partner with a business, feed manufacturers of their choice. I don't know whether it's by design or it's by lack of any other alternative. Like, farmers now tend to buy what is available and what they think is good enough with no data to. I think I like the aspect of data. No much data that supports. When a farmer says that this feed is good, this product is good, then all the farmers tend to follow that route without necessarily using data and all that. So I'm imagining that there we have around 2 or 3 products only, or companies that sell the feeds. I've never seen the hose product around my area where I come from. So I'm wondering then, how do we increase access and also try to manage the issues of transport and all that as a cost of production? So that, because as we are, they do what? What do we call that? They charge the feed from the cost of milk we sell to them, so that you don't have to, every day you are paying for the feeds, so they check off from the make monthly payouts. So that kind of partnership can help reduce the increase access and also reduce the cost. Thank you.
Thank you. So on the issue of access, and that's a very good question, is I mentioned earlier in my introduction that we have certain outlets that are branded, and I think that's what you're referring to. The branded outlets that keep exclusively our feed. We have now 38 outlets around the country, and we are going to continue growing them in all the key areas that farmers need feed. But we know that's not enough. The second phase, which we have started doing in about a month and a half ago, is to also tap into the existing distribution chain. Okay? Because even as a farmer, there is somewhere you always buy feed. You are used to it. You have a credit history, you have a history of buying, and you recall. They're able to sort those metrics that you're talking about. So that we are already doing as we speak. So beyond those particular branded outlets, we are also tapping into existing distribution channels. And these are very unique in particular areas. You go to Meru, we want to work with the main distributors that distribute feed there. That way, you as a farmer, you can access feed in all or any shop that you go to. So that's something we are working on. It's not perfect, but it's a very aggressive process we are doing right now. That was going to be my next point. So first of all, in the commercial market, the idea is we want every other feed shop that you buy your feed from, we should have our feed there. Then the issue of transport and convenience is sorted for you because you already have something to buy. On the process of cooperatives, that even takes a step further because cooperatives to us is they increase the access, but they also provide credit to farmers. Okay? So that's also a parallel agenda we are doing. There are conversations we have had with about 3 or 4 cooperatives, and that's ongoing. So give us maybe 2 or 3 months, we'll be able to tap into each of these key cooperatives, and then you as a farmer who sells milk to cooperatives, it just goes into the chain. And when we are going there, there's value proposition. It is about the feed, but also about the training, because training programs like this will also channel them to cooperatives, so that even members of the cooperative can also benefit from that. So that's a good point. It's something we are actively working on. And each of these areas, the idea is, in every single location we have farmers who would like to use our feed. My first question is, where do you get your feed? Then my headache is, can I fill that channel with feed to ensure that you are not inconvenienced as a farmer? Okay, so that's the agenda. Thank you.
Hello. Mimi naitwa ninashukuru vile mmeweza kutuelezea kuhusu ufugaji. Mungu akituweka wazima hapo baada kama wana kikundi tumefikiria kwenda kupata kang'ombe tuweze kufuga kwa nje unataka umetuelezea ili tuweze kufanya. Ya pili, tumeshukuru kwa ile mambo ya kufuga ya kizamani. Sasa hivi vile umetueleza tumeona kuna faida kubwa kwa ng'ombe. Tutaanza na njao katika kaploti kadogo. Alafu itakapofika pia tutaalika mweze kutuonesha zaidi. Ya pili, mkiweza wakati mtu akuweza kutafsiri kidogo, tuweze kupata lugha ya Kiswahili na Kiingereza, maana elimu ya kitambo hiyo miaka 64 Kiingereza.
Tumekuelewa kabisa mama. Asante sana kwa kutuba hiyo. Kile tutafanya ni hivi, hata kama wewe mkulima, ndio semina kama hii labda tumefanya kwa Kiingereza, tulisahau tungeongea kwa Kiswahili tena. Lakini si haujapoteza, kwa sababu kuna mwenzetu hapa, huyo Christina amekuwa akituelezea, sio? Uzuri ya kutrain watu wetu ni hivyo, si ndio? Wanapata masomo kutoka ng'ambo, wanakuja wanatuelezea kwa lugha tunaelewa, sio? Hiyo ndio sababu tumempeleka Uholanzi aende asome. So akirudi kama hako hapa hivi atakuja kwa shamba lako, si ndio? Muongee kwa lugha ambayo wewe kwa shamba unafanya nini? Unaelewa, sio? So hayo usijali, haujapoteza. Tutafuatilia kutoka hapa. Lakini tunashukuru kwa maoni yako, Asante.
Hello. So thank you for everything. I have a terrible cold. In your presentation, I either didn't get you correctly. You said cows don't require crude protein. Yes. What is crude protein? Yeah. Where do you place Lucerne, Desmodium, sunflower, and all?
Good question. Yes. So, lady was coming back to my remark, cows do not need crude protein, right? I was overstating a little bit. Cows do need crude protein, but I was trying to explain through maybe pushing it a little bit that in fact we feed crude protein to the cows, so they need crude protein, but they convert it to something else. And I just wanted to say that in my own calculations, I look at crude protein, but I optimize my diets based on other nutrients. Now, so they need crude protein, but I formulate a bit differently. Your second part of your question is even more interesting. So, how do we look at lucerne or alfalfa? How do we look at soybean? How do we look at sunflower? How do we look at those different protein sources, right? So first of all, lucerne is a very good source of protein, right? It's a crop which requires attention. You need to be capable of working properly with lucerne, growing it, needs enough water, also the harvesting. Lucerne is in fact 2 crops in one. It's the stems, which are not so digestible, and the leaves, which are very high in protein. So it's a very nice crop if you are capable of working with it properly. Then in terms of protein ingredients like soybean, cottonseed, canola, soybean meal, there is quite a difference in protein level, but there's also quite a difference in quality of protein. Right? So, for instance, sunflower has a decent quality, decent amount of crude protein, but the quality of the protein itself is not perfect. So, well, I can talk about this for another hour. I don't think we have so much time, but in our feeds I'm using high quality protein sources like soybean meal and canola. And if I have some space, I use some sunflower, but less, because the quality normally in terms of digestibility is lower. Thanks for your question. We had one more question.
Yeah, I'll take one more. If you check on your program, we have a session on Q&As, but I already jumped into that part of it. So you can have your last question, and then we all go for lunch.
Yeah.
And then if you have more questions, we could come back for another 15 minutes, because we also need to do the tour.
Farm tour, yes, of course. Yeah, you don't want to miss it. Yes. I'll repeat your question. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ferment it? Yeah. Like what? How do you ferment the bruised grains? Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Okay. So we're back to brewer's grains. So in my ideal world, you would ensile it under plastic anaerobically, and then you can keep it for months. I know the alternative is feeding fresh, and fresh means you need to have fresh supply every 3 to 5 days. I know that there are different systems in place, adding salt, putting the brewer's grains under water, so that there is no air coming in, right? Which are possible. But think at it from this perspective. If you're placing it underwater, how much are you feeding of the brewer's grains day to day? Because the first day you will have very watery brewery grains, and later on you will have drier brewery grains. But the cow requires the dry material, and it needs it constantly. So it's difficult to work with it in such a way. Your other question was, I think, in terms of combining it with corn silage, but with maize silage, I don't really understand the question. So would you then add it to the maize while ensiling, or? Yes. Yeah. So when feeding, you can for sure combine it with maize silage. Yes. Because the bruised grains is a combination both of an energy source and the protein source. There's around 25% crude protein in the bruised grains, and it's quite palatable, it's quite digestible. So you can look at it outside. So you could, for instance, if you work with a dairy meal, typically you can replace 1 kilo of dairy meal by 5 kilos fresh brewer's grains. That's around the exchange rate, right? So you can save some on your dairy feeds and use brewery grains to supplement the cows, because it gives both energy and protein. Yeah. Keep in mind, you need a minimum amount of the dairy meal to supply vitamins and minerals, 5 kgs. So you can play there. I think that was the last question for now. I give the microphone back to you.
There is a burning one.
So just one thing, kwa sababu ya yule mama ameuliza swali, recording zote za hii presentation na training tunazichukua recordings zote, alafu ziko kwa mtandao. So all our recordings are there na bado zimetafsiriwa kwa Kiswahili. Sawa. Kwa hivyo utazipata huko, unaweza kufuatilia masomo yote. Sawa sawa. Hai. So nimeacha namba hapo za watu. Christine Coril, one of our dairy trainers, that's her number. Contacts, please reach out anytime. And then the lower number, Sylvia Mutoga, is the area rep for this area. Sylvia, oh, there we go. She's behind you. I think you remember her. So she's the one in charge of this area. So anytime you have any question, follow-up, support, planning for your farm, she is your direct contact. Thank you.
Asante sana. Good people, ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause, please. That was very good. So without much ado and without taking much of your time, we are supposed to have a session on Q&As. That's a question and answers. And we've already jumped into that part. So what we'll do is we're going to break for lunch, and we can take, we're supposed initially to take 1 hour. But if you allow me with your permission, I'm going to lessen that minutes to come to 45, if possible. And I can see the team outside, they are ready to serve. So after lunch, if we could come back here at 15:25, I think that would be more than even 45. But if you could make it back 15:25, that will be good. And if you have any question, any burning question, or you want to understand more, or to ask more, or to learn more, please feel free. The contacts are already there. Sandra, Christine, Sylvia, they're still part of us. They're not leaving. And as we're having our lunch, you can as well reach them and consult them and ask more at that part of networking. And then when we come back after lunch, we'll only have about 15 to 20 minutes, if there will be any question anyway. If there wouldn't be, then we won't have much to take 20 minutes. But what we shall do is we will have McKenna coming to explain to us and giving us direction on how we're going to do the dairy tours. And of course, there was a question about the added values and things like that, including yogurt at the cafeteria. You'll be able to learn all that. But for now, good people and gentlemen, let me ask any volunteer to please come and bless the meal, and off we go have our lunch. Any volunteer, please? Anyone who wants to pray? There is someone. Thank you, ma'am. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Karibu sana, ma'am. Asante sana.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mighty and everlasting God, we thank you for all that we've learned this morning. It's time now to go and take food. We pray that you may bless it, Lord, sanctify it for our bodies, to give us the strength, the energy to live and to serve you. We pray all this